Tina, we're live.
No,
You
we're
okay?
not.
No, we're live. You're just the internet hasn't gotten to you yet.
No, it hasn't gotten to me yet.
We are so live. People are like, "Welcome to the world."
There
Everyone's
it is. Now we're live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Status Coup. It's Thursday. I am Ron Flacone.
And I'm Tina Desiree Berg.
We're back.
We're
We
back.
were.
Woohoo!
There's been a lot going on in East Palestine. Which, by the way, please do subscribe to the Status Coup Substack. We are pretty much the only outlet, specifically Status Lou's on the beat.
Yeah.
We're pretty much the only outlet who's still staying in East Palestine, doing stuff directly from East Palestine. We're not going to stop reporting on this story because it is infinitely important. So please subscribe to our Substack, statuscoup.substack.com. If you can, become a member, statuscoup.com/join. Your membership helps us do more on-the-ground journalism. Tina might be going to cover the teachers. Well, it's not just teachers, it's staffers and a bunch of other different folks,
It's
right?
it's actually not teachers. Teachers are only striking in solidarity with them. It's
They're in
SEIU.
solidarity.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
these are cafeteria workers, SEIU employees. They need a pay raise.
Bus drivers.
Yeah, bus drivers. The average salary that we're looking at for this group is $25K a year in Los Angeles. That's fucking ridiculous. You cannot pay rent on that.
Yeah, no, it's
25K
ridiculous.
is the average. Yeah, so I mean, the fact that they even have to go on strike to get a reasonable amount of money is ridiculous to me.
There's been music playing. Teachers are marching in solidarity. I believe it's State 3. So yes, statuscoup.com.
I have not been out to cover because we've been having torrential rain, and I don't want to take my gear out. It's been
raining. It's been raining here.
We're really making up for all the rain we haven't gotten for 10 years in 1 year. I've decided it's crazy.
And the one good thing about California is we collected the. Oh wait, no, we don't.
No, we don't.
We're about to. They're about to change that, which I guess that's a good thing. So basically, if we have 30 more winters like this and we actually collect it, we'll almost
might
caught
be
up.
okay, but the planet will be dead by then anyway. I mean,
so don't worry, folks. Yeah. So we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking about the TikTok hearing that happened today about potentially banning TikTok. We're going to be talking about Cop City. You can't go to a music festival now. Isn't that great? And we're going to have a guest, Will Larkin, to talk about the expansion of the Don't Say Gay bill. So for everybody, it's about protecting children. No, it isn't. It never was. All you had to do to know that was actually read it. But yeah, it's for sure not about that. And then later in Right Wing Insanity, you're going to learn about a flat earther who's running for Senate.
Yep. Yeah,
that's
happening.
Rich. You know what's funny? There was a flat earther conference once. This was when I lived in Pasadena. There was a flat earther conference once, and they had their big dinner at a pizzeria, which I'm sorry,
totally
around food. Around food. I'm like, I can't help but see. Notice how the pizza is round. Thank you so much, Aggravated Progressive. I watched Ron's loner teaser. So funny. Thank you so much for that. It's actually the full episode. It's episode 1. So you can check that out on my YouTube right now, youtube.com/Ron Flacone. Loner is the feature video. It is episode 1. We're in talks with a couple platforms about doing the series. So cross your fingers. Hopefully the entire series will be made soon. I've already written the second episode, and I know how it ends. So fingers crossed for that. But thank you for the shout out, Aggravated Progressive. And yeah, you can check that out right now over on my YouTube. So let's dive into it. Cop City.
We start with Cop City?
Yeah. Not Paradise City, mind you.
No.
Cop City.
Cop City. Atlanta is really trying to kill constitutional rights in ways that I didn't even think were possible at this point. So the latest thing is we have these defendants that are being charged with domestic terrorism. What is their crime? Attending a music festival. In no way did any of these individuals participate in the arson or equipment damage that occurred a mile or over a mile away in a different location. If they had arrested those individuals, I think there would be less outrage about what's happening right now. But the fact is that they arrested individuals that were doing nothing more than attending a music festival, including a Southern Poverty Center attorney. So he had bail. I think 2 other individuals have bail, but the majority of them are being denied bail. And the reason is that they had the names of a legal bailout fund or attorneys written on their arms or their hands. And that is not evidence of a crime. You cannot say, but they're trying to make this argument.
Yeah, you can do that.
You can do that. I've done it. A lot of journalists will do it if they feel like they're going into an area where they might be arrested. Have your attorney on speed dial. And the reason you're writing it on your arm is because you might have your things confiscated by the police and ergo not have a phone number to call. So when you get your one phone number, you're like, I don't have it memorized. What do I do? So that is the reason why you would do that. It's a very valid thing to do. There is nothing illegal about it. And it certainly is not evidence of a crime. It certainly is not probable cause of a crime. But this judge has been denying bail all morning on this.
Man, if going to a music festival was in fact a crime, I'd be put in jail for life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have so many offenses at this point. I'd have decades worth of offenses. They're like, we added it all up. You are looking at 168 years in jail. And it's like, wow, this is like, I mean, this is Footloose style stuff. They're like, well, the real reason we're holding them is because a couple of them were dancing to the music.
I mean, they're trying to use the thinnest of arguments that it's guilt by association because they don't live in Atlanta. They might flee jurisdiction, which brings me to part 2 of this conversation. Intercept had an article out, and I interviewed Micah, who is one of the activists down there in Atlanta for Cop City, and we're going to play that clip in a second. But basically what they were doing that night is apparently they arrested many more individuals than what got booked. If they had IDs, they were checking IDs, and if your ID said that you lived in the Atlanta area, you were let go. Why would they do that? Well, because they want to keep forwarding this outside agitator narrative, right? If they're outside agitators, they might, flee jurisdiction. So they're a bail threat. If we give them bail, they'll leave. They won't come back for trial. So there's all these arguments that they can make.
And you know what's scary is that formula works. Like as far as like the media is concerned, and as far as like regular people are concerned, they always use that whole outside agitator thing. I mean, they did that during Black Lives Matter. They did that during all the protests.
They did it in civil rights. They did it back in the 60s.
Oh, right? Yeah. They've done it for generations, but they entertain this like falsity that there's some radical bus of anarchists driving around who are upset with the status quo. Some of them might even be Russian, and then they get out in any given city and they're like, something bad is happening, and everyone else who was just totally content and nothing was wrong was like, ooh, these agitators might be onto something. I'm brainwashed now. The media reports that, and people actually believe it.
It's what's upsetting to me seeing this, play itself out is you do have what is basically stenography for the press releases that are being given out by city council members, the mayor, the police chief, the GBI. So they're basically just reporting that these people were arrested for domestic terrorism, blah, blah, but they're not questioning whether they should be arrested for domestic terrorism. And I find that to be really problematic. There should be no state domestic terrorist laws because inevitably they will end up being politicized by one group or another. If you want to charge somebody for crimes, you have a million crimes on the book that you can use to do that with, including guys like Dylan Roof, right? There's a reason we don't have a federal statute for domestic terrorism for this reason. They use all the other laws, right? Whether it's illegally selling drugs or guns, whether it is, violence, assault. There's 52 things that you can use to charge domestic terrorists that are crimes, that are actual crimes. The danger with domestic terrorism laws is that they become politicized. And that is how we ended up where we are today, right? So I'm pretty certain that the DA, the judge, the Atlanta Police Department, the GBI, the city council, they're all keenly aware that the individuals that they have arrested aren't the ones that engaged in any property damage. They know this, right? That's not the point. The point is they want to squash or kill political dissent in the city. And that is what they're effectively doing. They're basically telling people, if you come out and you protest against Cop City, we're going to arrest you and we're going to charge you with state domestic terrorism laws. And those laws, those charges could carry, 35 years in prison. So it's a serious charge. It is so messed up. And everybody in this country should be furious, upset, and paying attention to what's happening in Atlanta. This is your First Amendment and your Fourth Amendment being shredded right in front of our eyes.
And this is just a roadmap You know, I mean, it's like this isn't going to be the only attempt they try to do something like this. There's already grumblings of more cop cities. One of them might be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, my hometown, potentially. So I think all this is only the beginning. And as we're
I do
seeing this
too.
unfold,
I do too. Ron, I think, effectively the other outcome of this, the unintended consequence from strictly their point of view, I'm not saying mine, from theirs, is the unintended consequence that they're not really looking at is that it's just making people more angry. This isn't going to squash the political dissent. It's only going to make the people that are already pissed off more angry. And now you have individuals that had no idea that Cop City was even a thought, paying attention, seeing these reports and getting angry and upset. And many of them might be like, screw it. I'm going to go fly to Atlanta to go to this protest. It could be the case that we end up, Jordan and I have talked about this, by spring, this turning into a Standing Rock situation where you have a lot of people there in the forest and they're not going to go away.
I could see it. Yeah. I mean, in fact, honestly, I'm surprised it's not further along already towards that, like towards like a Standing Rock type situation. But I think part of the reason for that is there is just so much going on right now that it's like people have a hard time. But yeah, I do think something like this, it's kind of going to amass like another level of awareness amidst people.
Yeah, I agree. Should we play the Micah clip that I have?
Yeah, let's do it.
Some of the narrative that has come out from the police chief, from the city council, they want to pin everything on what they're calling outside agitators. It seems to me that that's not the case. Are there people that are coming from out of the state to support the movement? Yes, there are, but that doesn't mean that everybody is an outside agitator, which I think also, the one guy that they did arrest that is local there, they're now blaming him for being the ringleader. I watched the bail hearing, and one of the things the DA said was that because this person was the local person they arrested, he must ergo be the ringleader of Antifa or whatnot. I mean, it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. The thinnest of circumstances. So I want to ask you about this law that they're using. It's a 2017 law. It's a state law. These are not federal charges. It was created to apparently thwart domestic terrorism a la Dylan Roof, a guy that's actually a domestic terrorist. But it seems to me they are now politically using this law to just squash dissent.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the first time that we're aware that this statute has actually been used to charge people. And like you said, there's now 42 people who have been charged with domestic terrorism, some potentially for allegedly being a part of the Stop Cop City movement, others for attending a music festival last Sunday who were picked up and indiscriminately arrested by the police.
Let us go home! 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 Let us go!
And that point that you mentioned with the outside agitators is so important because, this is absolutely the strategy that we're seeing from sort of the Atlanta ruling class is to paint this movement as outside agitators. And you can see that strategy really specifically. So on Sunday, you can see that The Intercept reported this. There were originally about 34, 35 people detained by the police. They only ended up taking 23 of them to jail and charging them. And what we heard from on the ground, and then what The Intercept coverage confirmed, was that as they were arresting and detaining people, they were checking folks' licenses, and people who were from in-state were released, and people who were from out of state were kept and taken to the jail. And so this is all a part of furthering this outside agitator narrative. And this is a narrative that goes back to the civil rights movement and before. And, MLK spoke out directly against this narrative, saying we should be caring about what's happening in other cities. And of course, today, Cop City is an issue that, of course, impacts Atlanta, and that's why the movement started in Atlanta. But the reason you see solidarity protests all over the country and all over the world, and you see people coming to Atlanta, is because folks on the ground are asking people to be in solidarity with us, because Cop City is going to impact people across the world and across the country.
So if you want anybody that wants to watch that whole interview, I have it on the District 34 Patreon. Also, Zoom has really crappy internet camera, just saying. Sidebar there. Or maybe it's just their crappy internet. But his point is that they, and the Intercept, the reporter went and double checked all this, so we know this is factually true. They were releasing people that had in-state driver's license. That's crazy to me, right? But it allows them to keep going with this outside agitator stance.
Yeah.
The individual that was in the second group of arrests. So we have had 3 different arrest times now. The only one, like I mentioned in the article, Evan, his name is Evan. The only one that was in Atlanta was literally, the DA was basically saying he's from Atlanta, ergo he must be, the ringleader of Antifa. I mean, this is the kind of language that this guy was using. The DA was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, it's just this kid that's like 19 and works at a coffee shop and decided to go to a protest.
But did they check his name tag? It might have said ringleader of Antifa.
It might.
That's how it works, right? I mean, it's like, yeah, the stuff that they say is just so ridiculous.
It is so ridiculous. And let me add one more layer to this onion. Because of what the GBI is doing here, because of what the Atlanta DA, the DeKalb County DA is doing here, putting out these bulletins with the names and the photos and whatnot, you have a lot of right-wing extremists sharing this information, doxing these individuals, getting their home addresses, and publishing them on Telegram and chat rooms, sort of egging people on to go harass them, right? Because they're all Antifa and they're all evil and, blah, 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 things that you would read in a right-wing extremist chat room. So now, I've been told by one of the parents of one of these kids that they've had some of these guys show up at their house. This is dangerous.
Jeez. Yeah, that's nuts. I like how you say like right-wing extremist chat room as if that's like somewhere everybody goes. It's just like, Tina, not everybody like researches this stuff for a job like you do. Like, we're just like all the stuff you see in a right-wing chat room. Like, I can't say I have a ton of experience with that stuff.
I monitor that stuff so you don't have to. The people that do monitor it so everybody doesn't have to. I wouldn't want everybody to read this shit on the daily. Like, some of these rooms are terrible.
I don't doubt you.
Most of them, all of them. What am I saying?
Yeah,
I'm being charitable here.
Sure.
They're all pretty shitty. They're just varying degrees of they're just varying degrees of it. But but this is dangerous. I mean, what's to stop one of these individuals from eventually showing up with a gun at one of these folks' house and doing a similar to what happened in Portland, right? You had a guy, an Andy No follower, who showed up at that protest with a handgun and shot several people, killing one. I mean, just because he was radicalized and motivated by hatred towards quote unquote Antifa, the boogeyman, or whatever else. I mean, it's very bad that this is happening and it doesn't get a lot of attention. And I just see, I don't see it abating anytime soon.
Well, here's hoping we stop Cop City.
I think we're getting close.
One
to this
song
thing,
at a time.
Not. Do you remember? Yeah,
music
Ain't Gonna
festivals
Play Cop
fight
City.
back.
Do you remember Ain't Gonna Play Sun City during the apartheid era? We did the Ain't Gonna Play Cop City version of that.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. Alrighty. Should we TikTok? Is that next on the agenda?
Let's do TikTok.
Let's do TikTok. So, folks, there was a hearing.
Wild stuff here.
This is some wild stuff. Oh, first of all, smash the like button. Smash it. Support what's going on here. Smash the like button. Leave a super chat. We'll get to all your super chats later in the show today. So please do leave us a super chat. StatusCoup.com/join. Smash the like button. Share this. You know the drill. So TikTok. We've been covering this some here on Status Coup. I've been covering it some as well on Get Your News On with Ron. There is some policy out there in committee to ban TikTok. Now, of course, this policy isn't rooted in any type of data privacy concerns or anything like that. It's just a bunch of Chinese fear-mongering.
Right. That's the problem, isn't it?
That's the problem. First, it was sort of just political theater, but now, and it was mostly just the Republicans, now Democrats are coming on board with it too, because if there's one thing we can have bipartisan support of, it's a terrible idea. So now some Democrats are into the idea as well. Biden has indicated he would sign this thing. So there was a hearing today. There was a committee hearing today. The CEO of TikTok spoke at it. His name is Xiao Chu. So a lot of the stuff going on in this hearing, there's valid concerns around TikTok. I would never say that there's not. However, all of these concerns are shared across all social media. Concerns about privacy, concerns about what data is being shared. How does the algorithm work? How does content moderation work? How do age restrictions work? These were all the things that were brought up. These are concerns across the board. In fact, one of the things they found out at this hearing is that when it comes to data privacy, Facebook and Instagram are actually worse than TikTok is. Again, that doesn't mean there's no concerns around TikTok, but Facebook and Instagram are worse. They do more. They do worse things. TikTok.
So does Google. I mean,
so does Google. So TikTok doesn't actually sell your data. Now, to be fair, in the testimony, he didn't say that they never would. So again, I'm not trying to make it out like there's not issues with TikTok too, but they don't actually sell your data. Facebook does.
Right.
So Facebook is even worse. So if you find yourself worried about TikTok, but not worried about Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the list goes on and on, you're not actually worried about the issue. Right. You've just succumbed to anti-Chinese propaganda.
I agree.
I'm sorry. Like, that's all this is about.
That's what it is. No, that is. Because if they wanted to deal with these issues, they would be making blanket laws protecting consumer rights across the board, period. Instead, they're making a targeted list, and that targeted list is TikTok, and it's because they're Chinese. I agree with you, because it's about they've actually given up the ghost on that. They've ultimately said that it's about national security. That tells you it's not about consumer privacy at all. Yeah.
So let's play this video. This video is kind of gross. So Colin, let's play the one from C-SPAN. This is Representative, I think Pfluger is how you pronounce it, out of Texas. And just to give you an idea of the tone of what this was really about and how this has nothing to do with data privacy and everything to do with just straight up bigotry. This is embarrassing, but let's watch this video.
Do you disagree with FBI Director Wray and NSA Director Nakasone when they said that the CCP could have the capability to manipulate data and send it to the United States? Do you disagree with their statement?
Their statement says could.
So do you disagree with that?
No, I don't disagree with that.
Okay, so it is possible that the CCP, under the auspices of ByteDance, which is your parent company, which you get paid from, has the ability to manipulate content that is being shared with 130 million Americans, yes?
Congressman, I just want to make sure I'm understanding all these questions. I don't disagree with them that there are data risks in general. That's what I meant.
There's a big data risk
but
because
on us specifically.
Are there engineers located inside mainland China that work on TikTok? Not Douyin, but TikTok.
We are not the only company that has that.
Are there engineers inside mainland China currently working on the algorithm for TikTok?
Congressman, like I said,
as you told me in my office.
There are other companies that, as I told you in your office,
By the way, I'm going to reclaim my time. Please rename your project. Texas is not the appropriate name. We stand for freedom and transparency, and we don't want your project. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
I'm sorry.
I mean, what a
We
jerk.
stand for freedom and what is this guy even talking about? We
want freedom
so much we're going to ban your company. I mean.
So one of the things that keeps coming up is that they're saying, oh, well, does the Chinese government have access to this data?
Yeah.
So the CCP. So TikTok is saying, okay, look, we have data centers in Virginia and we have a data center in Singapore. What we're going to do, we're going to condense everything when it comes to American users, and we're going to put that all in the United States. So guess what? All the data is just in the United States. And they're calling that Project Texas because I think Texas was one of the states that's been making the biggest stink about this whole thing. They've been doing it the longest. So that's where the name Project Texas comes from. So this guy's saying, "Oh, don't invoke our name." Like what a jerk!
No, what a jerk! But
what
also,
an absolute jerk.
Also, I want to, I think that what needs to be also addressed is he's saying could versus should. Could they do that? Yeah, but you know what? You can make, again, like you said earlier, you can make that same claim about just about every other social media site out there. So again, if this was about protecting consumers, protecting data, which we should do, I'm all for that. Then do it across the board.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, could Mark Zuckerberg look at your DM?
Are you more concerned
yes,
about?
He could.
Yeah.
Could Elon Musk do this? Yes, he could. So could they do that? Yes, they could. But yeah, again, like have it be across the board. And it's been very, very concerning to just see how, this whole thing has been. And by the way, here's the best part. They call it, so this whole piece of policy, which the next step for this would be making it out of committee, another reason why this is so disturbing, other than the fact that it has nothing to do with data privacy and everything to do with just bigotry, is the fact that it would mess with something called the Berman Amendments. What these amendments are is it pertains to our rights as citizens to have access to information from foreign entities. If you messed with this, this could bring about a future where any given president, be it Biden, Trump, whoever, would have authority to discern whether or not we can see information or news from any country that isn't the United States. That's chilling and disturbing.
It is chilling. And also,
and by the way,
have to, Biden administration is supporting this bill, is my understanding.
They support this bill. Well, here's another kind of fun part. You know what this thing's called? It's called the Restrict Act.
Yeah.
They're literally just calling it that. They're not like, you think they'd try to have some like BS name, like, no, this is the Freedom, Liberty, Protect Your Apple Pie bill. Like, no, they're just going all out. They're calling it the Restrict Act. And everyone's like, yeah. It's just, and Biden said he'd sign it. So,
he said he'd sign it. Yeah, no, they've been supportive of this. But all of this is being framed as, I mean, if they're being honest, it's being framed as a national security issue. So the concern is with the CCP, the Communist Party. But, this is just nefarious bullshit.
Yeah, it totally is.
They should be addressing consumer privacy issues. No social media site should be able to access and sell your data to third parties without your permission. We're lucky here in the state of California. We have a state law that we have protections from. So if you're in California and you go on a website, you can they have to give you the option to opt out, which is great.
Right.
But that's not true of everywhere else. Europe is now addressing these issues. They have much more robust privacy issues legislation there. So maybe that might push American companies to have to comply, with EU regulations across the board. They might as well do it for America too. Maybe not. They make money off of data sale. That's a lot of them. That is their business. The bulk of it.
That's the thing here. The most obvious solution, not just for TikTok, but across social media, is better data privacy laws. This isn't rocket science. You don't need to be a tech expert to figure this out. It's just basic understanding of policy and how these platforms work. So why don't they go after this painfully obvious solution? Because that would hurt
they don't
Mark
care.
Zuckerberg's pocketbook.
That's right. They want
that
to
would hurt his pocketbook a little bit.
They want
He'd
to
make
protect
a little
the
less money.
Yeah.
So they won't go there. It's the most obvious solution. Everyone knows it's a solution, but they won't go there because they're big tech lobbyists don't want
Ron,
that.
They don't want it. Also, let's be honest about the fact that there are just as many American entities, whether it's a corporation, whether it is campaign, dark money PACs, whether it's politicians, staff. All of these folks engage in various forms of astroturfing, various forms of what I would call persona management, where they're trying to push certain issues. Everybody is doing this. So the algorithms that you're seeing across the board, whether it's Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, Gab even, Getter, if you want to go into some of the, right-wing sites, it's being manipulated by Americans to the same extent that it is by foreign entities as well, but that never seems to be a point of concern, right? So it's becoming very difficult for an American to get really honest information. It's becoming difficult. And I do think that is incredibly problematic. The spread of false information is one thing, but I'm also talking about, propping up ideas and making them seem much more popular than they actually are. That is also a form, right, of data manipulation. Because oftentimes people can be led to believe like, okay, I thought that was a bad idea, but wow, look at how many people seem to like it. Like, look at all these tweets and look at all this
that's
support.
why.
And if it could be bought and paid for, it's astroturfed, right? But it can be used to move a conversation, and corporations know that. They've been doing this for 10 years, 12 years, Cambridge Analytica was not the beginning of that. I would say go back to H.B. Gary, go back to
Well, and that's why it's like, that's why, and we talked extensively about Twitter, like via the Musk takeover, and that's why Twitter is not, Twitter's always had its issues, of course, but like Twitter is not especially for journalism, as valuable of a tool as it used to be.
No, it's definitely
And the reason
not.
for that is because there used to at least kind of be an algorithm to like show you what was prominent, what was going on.
Oh, now it's just
and
a hot mess. Like
now
I log
it's
into
just a hot
Twitter and I want to
mess.
log out. It's like, what is this? I mean,
Well,
you can
trend for $8 a month.
I started blocking accounts that I just didn't want to see because they were annoying. They're not individuals I follow, and I don't like blocking. But when you constantly are putting in my timeline people I don't follow and don't want to see, what other choice do I have? So I thought, okay, I'll block them, and then this will fix partly what's happening here. No, I'm not. I'm still
and it's being
they're blocked and their tweets are still showing up in my frickin' TL. It's ridiculous.
Well, here's the thing. They're not showing up in your timeline because they're getting a ton of engagement. They're showing up in your timeline because they paid.
Yeah, I agree.
They're giving Elon $8 a month. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really, and again, like that's another thing they taught. They're like, well, is TikTok prioritizing this information and this information? It's like, what? Do Twitter next. Do Facebook next.
Right.
It's like you weren't TikTok's doing this. They all do it.
Yeah, they all do. YouTube does it. I mean, come on.
Oh God, yeah. Jeez, yeah.
The YouTube search function is completely broken. I mean, there's no point to it. If I'm looking for a specific video, I have to leave YouTube and type in the search into my DuckDuckGo, and then it'll come up in the DuckDuckGo feed, but it won't come up on YouTube. It's insane.
And YouTube used to do the opposite. YouTube used to have a decent algorithm where if you were looking for a certain topic, you'd get other stuff fed to you. And if your video was doing well, you'd show up more. And that was how it worked. Well, then they took all of that away. Why? Well, because of the adpocalypse that happened several years ago. And I think really at the end of the day...
Which could have been prevented if they had... They knew they were having problems, but they were greedy and they chose to ignore them. If they had addressed some of those problems, it would have taken back some of the ad revenue they were getting, but it also would have prevented what happened in the adpocalypse. The advertisers... Had a perfectly real beef, to be frank. I mean, I wouldn't want my ad showing up next to Nazi crap, but YouTube knew they knew it was happening. They did nothing about it because
they knew it was happening. They did nothing about it. They knew that the solution involved a rational thinking human, and they didn't want to pay those salaries. Like 100%. and I think the other component too is that they really wanted to push everybody towards YouTube TV, and that's why they cracked down so hard on news and politics channels. The biggest competitor for cable news is stuff like this. So if YouTube knows that they're making stuff like this possible, let's put the kibosh on it.
But this is why they're now going to have to change that. They are starting to change it because what happened was, and I experienced it more than once, if I'm looking for a certain topic, stop giving me NBC videos from 4 years ago about something else. Because that is what you would be given. I would be searching for something that happened 2 weeks ago.
And it's just like all MSNBC stuff.
From like 4 years ago on top of it, not even on, and I'd be like, you're kidding me, YouTube, you're kidding me, right? Just, you're driving me out of your platform. Your platform sucks now. I can't find what I'm looking for.
So, folks, before we hop in, we're going to be talking to our guest here in a minute. A couple quick announcements before we get off TikTok. Go to don'tbantiktok.com and sign the petition. That's don'tbantiktok.com. You do not want to see this policy go forward for all the reasons we mentioned. And also, folks, I will be on the road. I'm hitting the road. Please come out and catch a show. April 14th, Los Angeles, California. May 12th, Los Angeles, California. June 16th, Madison. June 17th, Minneapolis. June 23rd, Detroit. June 28th, Bloomington, Indiana. June 29th, Chicago. Chicago, Minneapolis, and Madison. Use the promo code Lucy at checkout for an early bird special. And Edinburgh, Scotland. I'm going to be at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival August 16th through 27th at the venue 32 Below at the Little Cellar. My shows are at 4 p.m. daily, August 16th through 27th. All that information will be on my website soon. In San Pedro, California, October 21st. Tickets and all information at romplacone.com. And yes, don't ban TikTok. .com.
Yeah, can we get a petition out there for let's just instate privacy laws that protect consumers?
Data privacy would fixes everything. I mean, all the stuff people are complaining about, all of the issues, data privacy fixes nearly all of it. Pretty much all of it, because data privacy, they're like, oh, Facebook keeps feeding people this and this and this. Facebook just feeds you stuff to keep you on Facebook. So let's say you're interested in right-wing news. You go on to Facebook. Facebook's monitoring everything you do. They keep feeding you more and more and more and more right-wing news because they don't want you to get off of Facebook. So
they want you angry and engaged and glued to your Facebook all day long. That's exactly what they want. You're correct.
I mean, so
it's like it's every single one of these companies. So just if you want to fix what's broken, then fix the data privacy and these other issues. Don't target TikTok. It's stupid.
Absolutely.
That's my 2 cents.
I'm with you. I am with you completely. So I guess we can get to a little bit of we got Despush Fleisch. What's up, buddy? Secular Talk finally got 1 million subs, just coming from his live stream. Next goal, I like this goal, Despush Fleisch. Next goal, Status Coup, 1 million subs. Let's do it. Everybody tell a friend. Tell them to subscribe. Please do leave us a super chat. We'll get to everybody before the stream is over here. And like, share these videos. That helps a lot. That helps. God knows we're getting buried in the algorithm, folks. So if you can like these videos, if you can share, make sure you're subscribed. I always tell people, check your freaking subscription, because YouTube subscribes people unsubscribes people. Yeah, they're not going to subscribe anybody, but they unsubscribe people all the time. You got to check. Yes, they do. They do unsubscribe people. Well, because if they think the account's not active or whatever, they'll unsubscribe people. So please check your subscription. Make sure it's good. Ring the bell. If you don't ring the bell, you're not going to get notifications of when we're live. So please ring the bell. Please check your subscription periodically. Please tell your friends to subscribe. It all helps. It all goes a very, very long way. So let's go to, we're still waiting on our guest here, but let's go to, should we go to the USA piece on DeSantis?
Let's do it.
So this is what's happening with the commonly referred to as the Don't Say Gay bill, which is an extremely problematic piece of legislation if you've actually read it, because what it really does is it just kind of takes, it takes basically any type of autonomy away from LGBTQ youth, and it makes their life even harder. And now they're going to,
and it's done under the guise of like, we're letting parents discuss these things with their kids and not the school. That's the guise that they're using. But you're correct.
Yeah, that's the guys. It's about parent choice. It's about this and that, and it's like, no, it's not about that. It never was. And we're really, if you read that bill, that's never what it was about. But now, hopefully, everybody realizes that's never what it was about. So our guest is here.
Oh yeah.
So let's go ahead and bring. Yeah, Will is here.
Hey, Will. Welcome.
Hi. How are you?
Nice to have you on. Good. I wish it was under better circumstances than what's happening in Florida right now. But we're great to have you on the show. I know Jordan interviewed you back when he was doing his Florida trip. In fact, we're going to play a little bit of that clip, I believe. Should we play it now, maybe?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Ron DeSantis' own, I don't remember the title, but press secretary, yeah, that's right, went on Twitter and said it's an anti-grooming bill. And that is such a blatantly obvious dog whistle to legally enforce this stereotype that has put queer people in danger, that has gotten us killed. That is the reason we have, higher homicide rates. It's a regular thing. I could go on for hours with stories of small, times where I was put in uncomfortable situations, or people were homophobic or rude or whatever. And Florida already has the highest LGBTQ suicide rate of any state. And queer teens are 4 times more likely to commit suicide. And they know that, because I said that and I was one of hundreds that said that, testifying in the Senate and the House of Representatives. I went door to door talking to senators and representatives, Republican and Democrat, telling them these statistics and telling them personal stories. They heard me, they listened, and they voted for it anyways, because they know what they're doing and they are trying to kill us.
Yeah, you know what? We've actually now had some of these politicians literally come out and say they want to eradicate transgenderism. The anti-grooming stuff has reached epic proportions where we actually have literal Nazis showing up at drag shows, making really horrifying statements about trans kids.
So, Will, what is your what is your initial reaction as they're now trying to expand this policy, and they can basically do so without any public opinion whatsoever, too?
Yeah, so I just got back from Tallahassee last night, actually, and I'd been there for 3 days lobbying and fighting against these so many bills. My initial reaction is that I'm not surprised. I'm not remotely surprised. Their rhetoric last year, the words they used, and everything they said pointed to the fact that this was the first step to something worse and bigger. Last year's Parental Rights in Education Don't Say Gay bill was already the second iteration of a similar bill. The first one just wasn't egregious enough that anyone knew about it. So this, in reality, is the third expansion. I talked to my government teacher today and found out that she will no longer be allowed to teach about Obergefell versus Hodges, the Supreme Court case that legalized gay marriage, in class because of this bill expanding Don't Say Gay all the way through 12th grade. This is objectively a Don't Say Gay bill. Don't Say Gay or LGBTQ. It was already heinous and problematic, having been K through third. Being through 12 is it's unreal. It's unreal. I knew that I was queer in 5th grade. Most kids can say the same. There are so many reasons to talk about gender and sexuality that don't even have to do with being queer per se, but have to do with history and have to do with science and all these other topics that are vital to education, which will be completely eradicated. It's terrifying.
When people, just on that, when people do say things like you hear, especially, and I feel like this is something that people do a lot when Ron DeSantis is involved, which is one of the reasons why I think he is so dangerous. When they downplay these bills and when they say, "Oh no, it's just about giving parents more rights and giving parents a say and this and that," what is your response to that?
I mean, it's not about parents' rights. Off the bat, we know that. It's about taking away the rights of LGBTQ students. Second of all, I think a point that is not made nearly enough is the fact that parental rights shouldn't infringe upon students' rights. My rights end where yours begin. And that is sort of something that they've seemingly forgotten. There's one licensed mental health counselor at my school, and previous to 1557 being implemented, you could go and you could anonymously talk to them for an hour and then leave. That's life-saving to a lot of kids, especially kids without supportive parents. Right. I was let know that this year because when I was having a bad day, I decided I just need to talk to them just today. They don't need to know who I am, none of that. And they told me because of House Bill 1557, I now have to get a consent form signed by my parents.
Oh my God.
That's very dangerous if you have parents that aren't supportive.
Well, so one of my friends who has parents that don't believe in therapy and are religious, naturally, forged her parents' signature to get this life-saving therapy. And that's literally a crime. And that's such a massive barrier to students, especially students who are afraid of their parents. Right. So that, these implications, it doesn't just harm queer kids, it harms everyone. Another thing that happened, and this is just the original 1557. This isn't even the expansion and everything that's encompassed in that. But I'm the president of my school's queer student union, or former president of my school's queer student union. Last year when we were meeting, we used to take roll of everyone's names and their contact. So when we had events, we could mobilize our members. We had to start taking tally marks instead, and not being able to track membership made running a club a lot harder. The reason we did tally marks is because now if a parent calls the school and says, "Is my kid in the GSA?" they by law have to tell them. So we had to stop taking roll because that endangers most of our members. Our members are staying after school at the GSA because they can't go home to a safe and affirming environment. And on top of all this, this isn't even the most egregious attack on transgender kids that we're seeing in the state legislature. I was in a committee the day before yesterday. No, yesterday. I was literally in committee yesterday for a bill that would not only ban gender affirming care for people under 18. The Board of Medicine already did that, but the Board of Medicine did it so that people already receiving gender affirming care would be grandfathered in. This bill reverses that, effectively forcing people under 18 to detransition by December 30th. So if you've been on hormones or puberty blockers or anything of the sort for 5 years, you are forced to stop on December 30th.
Which can be very bad medically speaking. There's definitely consequences to that.
There's so many consequences. I mean, and the main and most important one is pretty obvious. This is going to lead to a massive and horrifying spike in suicides. That's what's going to happen. Florida already has the highest LGBTQ suicide rate. And that's what this bill is going to do. It is going to kill people. And when I went up and testified, that's all I said. I said, I want you to look me in the eyes so I can tell you that this is going to kill people. And I want you to sleep with that because I know you're going to pass it anyways. And they passed it anyways.
I honestly don't think that a lot of these individuals care. It's stunning to me, the increase and the volume and the hatred that I'm seeing when it comes to transgender rights. Transgender has been something that's part of humanity since the dawn of man. It's nothing new. It's nothing crazy, but all of a sudden in the last, I'd say 2 years, it's become this giant right-wing extremist cultural thing that's happening. I had actually covered at CHOC, which is the Children's Hospital. They had in Anaheim, they had a conference, and a lot of it was about gender affirming care and things like this. All of these doctors had no idea that these right-wing extremists had planned this, counter protest outside of where they were having this conference. And the doctors were coming out and just getting berated by these just really loud, mean-spirited, and also completely clueless individuals that had no idea what they were even talking about when it came to the medical aspects of what was on the table. But they didn't care, right? And I'd say a lot of this was driven by religious beliefs. So I wanted to ask you if, in your opinion, is this, a form of theocracy? Do you think a lot of these laws are being motivated by just the increase in extreme right-wing viewpoints within the evangelical community? I know Ron DeSantis is a very religious guy.
Okay. This is what I think. I think religion, I think humanity is smart enough to know that religion is made up by humans at this point. So I think, unlike the past, when there were spikes in fascism led by religion, a lot of back then, religion was sort of the reason, people were, because of their religious beliefs, doing this. And I do think that's happening, but now it's more so just using religion as a vessel to be hateful instead, because I do not believe that any of these people are truly religious. I do not believe that any of these people actually care about the word of God or the 10 Commandments or anything in the Bible. They just know that it's something that holds power that they can use against us.
I agree. A lot of the rhetoric is, it's this, I hate to say it, but it's the same sort of stuff that you heard in Nazi Germany prior to, Hitler, doing genocide, not just on Jewish folks, but on many other individuals. I mean, absolutely. There's definitely a connection there in the increase in fascism that we're seeing in this country, and why this has become such an issue, and it's not just transgender individuals, it's drag shows, it's drag queen story hour, and as that expands, it's including the entire community, right? So I think that they might ultimately end up going after gay marriage. I don't think that that's off the table.
Absolutely not. I mean, was it Alito or Clarence Thomas? Either Samuel Alito or Clarence Thomas. One of them, in the majority opinion overturning Roe v. Wade, said that they will be challenging Obergefell versus Hodges, which would effectively overturn gay marriage. But so back to what you were saying about the parallels between this and Nazi Germany, it is nearly identical, telling you from the ground, being here, watching it happen, I was privileged enough to go to a really good private school in California. So I got a true education growing up. So I've seen what education can be, and now I see what it can be. So I learned about the Holocaust in depth, and watching what's happening here in Florida, I am seeing all the similarities. Very, very frightening. And I could be wrong, but if this year is, or if last year is to this year as this year is to next year, I won't be surprised if there are camps for trans people. That is how
I won't either.
That's
no, I
how
won't either.
it is this year than it is last year. And can I tell you something happening in my school district right now?
Yeah.
So, Boone High School, neighboring high school, their GSA, student-led, student-organized. This is a high school. I'm a legal adult. This is high school. Boone High School's GSA organized a Dragon Donuts after-school event that was supposed to happen today.
Okay.
Essentially, what would happen is Mama Ashley Rose, drag legend, local drag legend, nothing but family friendly. That's her whole thing. Was going to come in, talk about queer culture, and eat donuts with the students. Alicia Ferrant, a school board member on Orange County Public Schools who Ron DeSantis donated to, part of Moms for Liberty. She represents Boone High School.
God. Moms for Liberty.
Oh, yes, that. She used her connection to DeSantis to get the Board of Education to call OCPS and threaten to open an investigation on not just the GSA sponsor, not just the teacher sponsor, but the school board members, tying their hands. Because even though the majority of the school board and the superintendent fought against this, the Board of Education has the power to remove the superintendent. They tied their hands behind their backs and they canceled a student organized after school event that goes against what the sponsor of the original Don't Say Gay bill said would happen, because they promised it wouldn't affect after school activities. And here they are canceling a student organized drag show. That is atrocious.
It is atrocious. The other thing that I'm very disturbed by is this consistent uptick in calling everybody, not just a groomer, but a pedophile, right? We're seeing this language now. All gay folks are now pedophiles. Like I absolutely see people saying this, which is frightful. It's like, no, that absolutely isn't true. Meanwhile, you have so many right-wing extremists that have been arrested, for gun charges and a whole host of things. I would call these folks, neo-Nazi domestic terrorists, including one from Adam Waffen Division. So many of these folks were arrested with literal child pornography on their laptops and phones.
And Ron DeSantis got high school girls drunk when he was in college.
So is it just Olympic level projection? What is driving this?
It is absolutely that Olympic level projection. Everything that they are accusing queer people of, they are doing themselves. They're saying that we are destroying education. And I don't know if you saw this, but DeSantis got the Florida Department of Education to change a elementary school textbook about Rosa Parks to not even talk about skin color. It just said that she sat in a seat that she wasn't allowed to sit on, and then someone told her to move, and she didn't. That's all.
Well, and he's trying to ban books by the boatload.
Math
there's another book every week.
Banning books successfully.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's really the free speech warrior he claims to be. It's just amazing. It is
all projection. I mean, I don't know if y'all have read 1984 by George Orwell, but the Department of Peace was quite the opposite. The Department of Love, quite the opposite. That is exactly what is happening in Florida. That's exactly what's happening in Florida. The Department of Education is the exact opposite of what it says it is.
Yeah, it's very Orwellian. I don't disagree with that.
It's guys, I knew that it was worse this year than last year with the supermajority, but after spending 3 days in the Capitol, I was not prepared for how much worse it actually is. I could name all 5 bad bills last year, 5 of them. There are probably 30 plus. I learn about a new bill attacking trans people every single day. It is, I could sit here and tell you for hours more other things that bills have implications of. House Bill 411 allows anyone anywhere to run for school board anywhere in Florida. And Ron DeSantis put $10 million into school board races in 2022.
Yeah. No, yeah. This is a thing that's happening. Also, we're seeing I've seen Proud Boys now running for school board positions. I've seen a few Oath Keepers. There's definitely something happening at that lower level where let's get infiltrated into school boards and we can really, start changing. And they've been successful in a few of these counties doing that, which is also
happening right here in my own backyard. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you about a specific policy too. Like I know there's like so many going on right now, and it's
so bad. It's
I follow a journalist named Aaron Reed. They do a really good job like keeping track of everything just across the country because we're well into the hundreds now. Yeah. But
I think it's almost 300. Honestly, is what
I went from last year being.
I thought it was higher than that. I thought it was like past 400. I hope I'm wrong.
All right.
I hope you're right and I'm wrong, but I've heard it's like over 400. But the one
to listen outside of Florida, so I don't even know what's going on out there. But I went from last year being terrified for Florida to this year being terrified for the entire country. I don't even know. But sorry. Anyways, continue.
Well, this one's Florida specific, where it's like we're talking about. So far, we've talked about parents who aren't supportive. Well, now they're trying to penalize parents who are. And I wanted to get your take on the proposed Florida bill that basically allows the legal kidnapping of transgender children. If you're familiar with that, and if you have any experience with that so far.
I testified in opposition of it yesterday. So it's actually the same bill that would force kids to detransition. Fun fact. It all falls under one thing right there. So a few facts about that. It has been a little bit dramatized, but that isn't to say it's not something to be afraid of. Well, it only applies if the parents are divorced and if one parent is supporting the transition of their kid and the other one doesn't like it. That's the only place where that applies. But regardless, it does allow in some cases for the state to take hold of the kid for being supported by their parents. Parents of trans kids are leaving in droves out of Florida. Everyone has an escape plan right now. I'm lucky enough that I'm at the place where I'm going to college next year and I have opportunities to leave the state. Thank God. But, so many people don't have that ability and so many people are going to, give birth to a trans kid and not be able to get out. And that is what's happening. The other thing that bill does is it makes it illegal for adult trans people to change the gender on their birth certificate. It makes it so that insurance companies cannot cover any gender affirming care stating that it's cosmetic. It makes it's so horribly written. Listen to this. It's
cosmetic. It is absolutely not cosmetic. My God.
Oh, I know. And there were doctors there saying that, but they didn't want to listen. But Representative Randy Fine, who filed and wrote this bill, did such a terrible job writing it that it accidentally outlaws circumcision, which personally I'm not against. I'm not against that, but that's how badly written this law is. And
wow.
And it makes it so insurance companies can't cover vasectomies or mastectomies. That's another thing that it accidentally does because it's so horribly written.
It's so broadly written, that it has all these unintended consequences.
And he had the audacity to make a joke about having a big dick while explaining the bill.
Really?
Yeah.
What was his joke?
It was something along the lines of, well, like we wouldn't want insurance companies to pay for people to enlarge their penis. Not that I've ever had a problem with that.
No.
Oh my God, of course. Like no part
Gold.
of this no part of this is shocking to me. Will, let me ask you a question. So the fact that they are expanding this legislation to now, cover high schoolers, I think this is much more detrimental than, like, it shouldn't exist at all, but I think it's much more detrimental because you're talking about kids that are much older, more aware of a great many things, might have already been having gender affirming care at some point. So I think that the outcomes here can be much worse. Would you say that that's right?
So as we've seen in my district, school boards are now in charge of GSA events. This bill is going to, whether they say that it will or not, it will ban GSAs completely. There will be no more queer clubs. There will be, teachers will not be allowed to be trans. There's a teacher at my school who's non-binary, uses they, them pronouns. they will not be allowed to use they, them pronouns and tell the students to use they, them pronouns. They're not going to be allowed to respect their students. A teacher will be breaking the law if they use correct pronouns on students. This is going to lead to a mass teacher exodus. We already have 5,500 plus teacher vacancies across the state of Florida. I had 3 teachers quit last year.
Wow, that many. That's a lot.
I have 4 of my teachers have told me that they plan to quit within the next 4 years, and 2 of my teachers are leaving at the end of the year. One of my teachers works 2 jobs and is, get this, fucking homeless. So, teachers.
I mean, not only are they being faced with these laws that they're going to be responsible for if something goes wrong. It's not just this; it's also the banning of books in the libraries. And they get paid very little money for all of that. Why would they stay? I mean, it makes sense.
Well, and then there's also a bill that is likely to pass that would abolish the teachers union. They're going to have no more protection. So we're at a point when this expansion bill passes, you're going to see a massive rise in suicides. You're going to see GSAs be dismantled across the state, and you're going to see teachers and queer families leaving in droves. And it's not going to be pretty. It is not going to be good. And I
think you're also going to see an increase in hate crime.
We've already seen that. We've already seen rates of hate crimes go up in Florida since last year with this rhetoric. Because aside from the legal attacks on queer people, the highest power in the state and the majority of our government are empowering people who bully me, who have threatened to beat me up, who have threatened to kill me. They are telling those people, you're right, you're correct, and that person is probably a pedophile, so you should kill them. And that's what they're telling them. You know, by empowering these people, this hatred, they're putting us in so much more danger than the law could even. I
agree. I agree.
I saw.
Will,
sorry. Yeah.
No, I was gonna. You kind of hinted at this, and I did sort of want to ask you. I mean, your activism is incredibly admirable. Thank you so much for what you do. It's very sad that you have to do it, but we're really glad you do. And you are a senior, so what are your future plans, if you want to share?
So, I originally, my whole life, had always planned to leave Florida for college. I grew up in California. I've lived here since 8th grade, and I love Florida. There's a lot of great things about this state, and I've really enjoyed my time here, but I've always been someone who wants to see new places and travel. So it was always my plan to leave the state. Now, over the past 6 to 12 months, as I've gotten into applying to colleges, I've applied to many out of state, I've applied to schools in state. It's become increasingly clear I don't want to go into debt. That's not something I want to do. Florida has a fantastic scholarship program, Bright Futures, best in the country. It doesn't take much for me to get 100% of my college expenses paid, and then a refund for the government. So I have just straight, I get paid to go to school and live somewhere. Okay. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. That's, one of the reasons so many people have been moving to Florida up until recently. And so I was looking at doing, 2 years in Florida and then transferring and getting, saving thousands of dollars. But House Bill 999 bans women and gender studies and Jewish studies and anything.
Even at universities?
So it bans public universities from having.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Jesus, are you kidding me?
Major is banned. Jewish studies, the major, is banned. It puts the governor's office and legislature in charge of the core curriculum. It totally destroys the system of tenure and makes it so that professors.
Wow, this is way worse than I thought. I didn't realize that.
It's worse than anyone knows. People don't know. So
no, I didn't know this about colleges. I thought it was just high schools. Jesus.
No.
Pardon my French.
So no. So it's colleges, and so I was initially planning to stay, but I would not get a proper education. And would I, if I were to stay? I'm thinking of studying sociology, political science, something along the lines. I'm not 100% sure which direction I'm going to go yet, but many of the classes that I would want to learn from, anything about African American studies, completely banned from colleges too. My friends at UCF, which is just down the street, are telling me their professors are quitting. I had one friend who told me 3 of their professors quit last week.
Yeah, I don't blame. It's not shocking, especially if they're adjunct and not tenured. I mean, what's?
Oh, it's removing tenure. It's making it impossible to teach it's making it possible for real education to happen. Also, I don't know if you saw what happened at New College. It's a public school in Florida. DeSantis,
I did see that. Absolutely frightful.
That.
Yeah.
So that also happened. That's going to happen to other schools. Do
you want to talk on that a minute? So if people don't know about that, maybe it's worth mentioning.
Absolutely. It is absolutely worth mentioning. It's definitely one of the things happening here. So DeSantis can appoint the board of trustees for all the public colleges, totally overwhelm the board of trustees at New College, which has been a liberal majority LGBTQ school in Sarasota since the 70s. And they fired the principal, or they fired the president, and they're reviewing and firing most of the staff and turning the entire school into a Christian conservative public education institution instead of what it was before, which was an organic school teaching what the students wanted. So I don't think that I would get a real education if I stayed here, and I don't know where the state is going. As much as I would love to stay and fight for my people and fight for my state, I only live one time, and I am exhausted and I'm depressed and I can't do this anymore. Today they passed permitless open carry and then changed the age, which had been previously 18 to 21 after Parkland, back to 18, all in one bill. It's not safe to be in Florida.
No, it's not. It's not. Especially if you're trans, it's insane. Or even any member of the LGBTQ community is not safe.
I mean, we're just seeing society go backwards.
We 100% are.
I mean, the things that you are bringing up, Will, you know, I mean, I am older than you, you know, and Tina and I are both older than you. And
I'm older than Ron. Sorry.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but you did. So, okay. But like, you know, I went to college at Indiana University, which
UC Irvine
is actually a pretty progressive university, but, you know, it's also in a very red state. So, you know, you get a little bit of everything. But I mean, some of the stuff that you're bringing up, I'm thinking like that's backwards from where we were. And I was in college a while ago. It's
it's frightful. This is it's bad for society.
My cat is
too,
concerned
across the board. That is very concerning. It's like,
and it's happening in other states. Like it's
Tennessee is having a real problem too.
Tennessee,
Arkansas, Tennessee.
Also, North Dakota. I don't know if you saw this. They're banning books from their public library system. Not schools, but their public library system. Also, UCI. I grew up like right next to UCI.
Oh, did you? All right. Woohoo! Can I get a Zot.
I didn't know anything about it, but I did grow up near it.
UC would be a good school for you if you still have family here.
I applied to UC Berkeley and I applied to UC
right on.
Diego. I'm trying to go to a new place. You know, I already lived in California. I already experienced that. On to the next.
Right on.
It's really frightening in Florida. I don't know what to do. Like, we're in this place where there's nothing we can do. They banned protesting at the Capitol and within 8 blocks of the Capitol. So we organized.
Wait, 8 blocks?
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. The free speech warrior Ron DeSantis, who bans protesting. I mean, it's unreal.
Protesting, bans books. No, it is unreal. How does this guy? It's shocking.
We organized a read-in that was originally going to be at the Capitol with a bunch of the authors of the banned books and a bunch of students at schools where books are banned. And we had to do it at a random bookstore, like out of downtown Tallahassee. It was crazy. And of course, and like, you know, we did what we could, but it was at a random bookstore outside of Tallahassee, you know, and that's where we're at. And then we can't do civil disobedience. We can't have unplanned protests, unpermitted protests, because in 2021, post Black Lives Matter, House Bill 1, I'm sure you saw this, made it so that if someone decided to plow us down in their car, they would not be liable.
They would not be liable, which is insane.
So now we need to have everything permitted, and there's proposed legislation that would make permits go through the legislature rather than cities.
They're trying to squash political dissent. They're stepping all over the First Amendment. They're stepping all over, you know, this is the party that's supposed to be about small government and civil liberty, and they're not, clearly. They're doing the opposite. But, you know, in a way, I'm kind of seeing these guys actually make the case now that they don't like democracy, right? Democracy isn't good. It's bad because they can't get, you know, the actual bills passed, the legislation that they want passed in the country via democracy, right? that's why they're kind of veering towards more fascism and oligarchy, because they know that that is how they bring about these changes. As loud as these folks are, they're not the majority of Americans. But again, you don't need a majority to have something really bad happen. It doesn't take anywhere near a majority. Small groups of people can affect bad change if they're able to, loud enough, have bought Congress folks, whatnot, which is what we're seeing in many states.
What do you think DeSantis's White House chances are?
Yeah.
Oh.
How does that make you feel?
When Donald Trump was running for president, I joked that I would leave the country if he won. But if DeSantis wins, I am leaving the country and I'm not coming back, because that would be the end of what we know to be the United States of America.
I agree.
I agree.
I
hate to give DeSantis any credit, but he went to Harvard and Yale, so he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. He's very effective, obviously.
No, I think that Ron DeSantis, and I despise Trump with every fiber of my being, but I think Ron DeSantis is actually what people were saying Trump was. Like that Trump, like Trump is this. I mean, Trump's an egotistical jerk. But Ron DeSantis is the competent fascist.
Right.
He is evil. He's evil. Like I can't put it into more words. Joe Biden is really old and sucks a lot of the time. And I was starting to like him, and then he approved the Willow Project, and now I hate him again. And Ron DeSantis said on Tuesday that he believes he would beat Joe Biden in a presidential race.
Possible.
I think he would. Yeah.
I think he has a shot of it.
Possible. Last year, if you had asked me that, I would have said absolutely not. If you had asked me that a month ago, I would have said, "Oh no, there's no way." Like Ron DeSantis is an obvious fascist, but
we have a growth in fascism in this country. Like, I cover a lot of right-wing extremism, and I see these folks now, instead of saying we want democracy, they're not saying that anymore.
No,
and in fact, a lot of these fascists wildly are also becoming very anti-capitalist. And the reason for that, of course, is because they see the massive, a lot of the things that the left views as a problem, they do as well. Massive income inequality, corporate oligarchy, regulatory capture. What's going on in East Palestine is a prime example of that. So, but their answer to all of that is an increase in authoritarian state. It is bigotry. It is hatred towards the other. It is white nationalism. Let's stop with immigration. Let's deport the folks that are brown and black that are already here in the country, taking your jobs from you. They just have a different, outcome to that. And if the Democratic Party doesn't realize it now, I just don't. It's frustrating. I don't know how to make them see the answer here. Is that they need to run a candidate that offers a left-wing solution to these economic problems. If that doesn't happen, it's just an ever amount of increasing fascism, I think.
I absolutely agree. But this is the problem with the two-party system. What Republicans do is completely unrecognizable to the original views of the Republican Party, small government, etc. So the Democrats are just as split, and Florida is a great example of this. Our Democratic Party doesn't even exist. It doesn't exist. Like it technically exists, but it doesn't exist, and it's horrible. And that's because there's this idea in our country of both sides. I always hear people say, "Oh, well, you got to hear both sides." That's bullshit. We need to start saying all sides, and we need to start understanding that there are more than two perspectives to every issue.
100%. And sometimes the truth just needs to be the truth, and that doesn't require having both sides either. Sometimes the truth is obvious, and there's no reason to give somebody that is full of hate the same amount of time or the same platform. That's just my opinion on it.
Well, I have one more question for you.
I actually have one too, but you go first.
So, as a trans youth, what do you think is the biggest common misconception? And I'm not talking like in circles like this, but amidst like the place at large and the corporate media and stuff like that. What do you think is the biggest misconception around gender affirming care? What do you commonly see people getting wrong about what it actually is and what it's about?
That it's being readily given out, that it's easily accessible. It's not.
It's not.
I'll tell you a sort of personal story. Someone very close to my life in middle school thought that they were a boy, and they wanted to go on gender affirming care. But after meeting with a therapist and having those conversations, they realized that that they were not, and that, you know, that was just an exploration and it was misguided feelings, and, you know, that was just the first barrier, and there are so many before you can actually access to those hormones. You can't just go in and get them unless
you can't. Yeah.
Unless you're going to, like, I don't know, like some sort of fake black market doctor. You're not going to be able to just access it. There's so many barriers of entry. And that only less than 1% of trans people end up detransitioning. So it's not an issue. And the majority of people, young people included, who access gender affirming care end up so it saves their lives. Everyone I talk to says gender affirming care saved my life, and it's just not being readily given out, and they're acting like it is. They're acting like it's being forced on kids. It's not, because you have to have a diagnosis before you can have treatment, and doctors aren't stupid.
No, they're not. I mean, and it's legitimate healthcare for those that need it. I knew somebody in my 20s that was intersex. They had been born with various degrees of both sex organs, just leave it at that. But, you know, for them, it was a necessary health thing, right? You know, this individual was lucky enough to not have their parents make a decision for them at birth as to what they were to be later in life. So they were able to do that on their own. Which leads to a much happier individual and less issues. But a lot of these folks that are just throwing out this rhetoric, they don't understand it. They have absolutely no. And if you ask them about something as simple as this, they don't have a response for it because they don't even consider it. It never occurs to them that there are legitimate health reasons, right, that are not driven by their backwards notions of what it is to be male or female. That exist in the world. So speaking of it, I'm as the cisgender woman in the room, I'm going to bring this up because I'm kind of fed up with TERFs right now in a big way. I feel like this whole TERF thing is really motivating a lot of the hatred. A lot of the TERFs see themselves as being liberals or on the left. They fail to understand a lot of the intricacies of what it means to be trans. They have this kind of mistaken belief, I think, that if they allow the space and to be inclusive, that they're somehow losing out on women's rights, which I personally think is ridiculous. I think is absolutely ridiculous. But also they have, you know, they end up having these really untenable positions, right? So because this has been on Twitter the last few days, I've had TERFs, one of them said to me, well, you know, men can't give birth. And I was like, yeah, a lot of women can't give birth either. Does that mean they're not women? Or, you know, women have periods. And I'm like, do they though? I mean, so like a woman that's gone through menopause, now all of a sudden she's no longer a woman? I mean, point being, it is just not that simple. It's not that black and white. What is your feelings towards TERFs? Do you find this to be super problematic? Do you think it's inflaming the arguments that are coming from right-wing extremists even more?
I think, I mean, as with any other hatred, it's definitely a problem. It's obviously misguided anger. The people who are taking away women's rights are not trans women. It's
no, exactly.
Men in power. Oh, whoops. So there's,
but you're right. You're absolutely right.
The other thing is, you know, there's this really interesting thing when a certain group is being attacked so brutally, trans people, people in proximity but without complete privilege, try to approximate themselves closer to the cis white male rather than the oppressed group. And they try to separate themselves thinking that they will be taken in by the people in power, thinking that that will save them. At a lot of the committee hearings, there were like 2 or 3 maybe, gays against groomers, cis white men coming to speak out against the transgender agenda. And I wanna smack them and say, they're gonna come after you next.
You next, exactly. How do you not see it? Yeah.
There's a famous quote that's like, first they came for the Jews, but I didn't fight back because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for the trade unionists, and then they came for the gays, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to defend. And that's exactly what's happening. And unfortunately, TERFs and gays against groomers and everyone trying to separate themselves from their own oppressed identities are going to be on the wrong side of history, and soon there's going to be no one left to save you. Yeah.
I agree. I agree with that. Will, do you have a Twitter, or do you have some place that people can keep up with your activism?
Absolutely. So all my socials are at Proud Twinkie, or you can look up Will Larkin. Proud Twinkie.
I'm going to go follow you after this. Proud
Please
Twinkie.
do. So I mainly use I post updates from the ground of what's going on with students, what's going on in schools. Twitter and Instagram, you get the fastest content for sure. But I also use TikTok sometimes and explain bills, explain legislation, post videos of myself and others testifying. So yeah, Proud Twinkie on everything. I give updates.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for everything you do, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for spreading the word. Hope y'all have a wonderful day wherever where are you guys?
We're in California.
I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yeah, Los Angeles.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And Jordan's obviously on the East Coast. We're spread out across the country at Status Coup.
Okay, yeah. So when Jordan interviewed us last time, and I said in the interview, I said, this legislation is going to lead to suicides. It's going to lead to people killing themselves. And the next day in school, I got pulled out of class by the administration, and they're like, "Can you give us a list of names of people who are going to kill themselves?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And it was because of that video, because it was on campus, that they had to say something. Wow. And I was like, I don't know. Like, first of all, no, I'm not giving you a list of names of people I think will kill themselves. Second of all, this is not how you're gonna stop it. It's gonna be fighting against this legislation, and yeah. Anyways.
I agree.
All right.
Stay strong, Will. Stay strong.
Thank you, Will.
My best.
All the best.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, this is happening, and folks.
No, it's very disturbing that just the increase in rhetoric that just even the last 6-7 months,
and how brutal it is, and how this is this guy's agenda, and this is literal by the book fascism. And I mean, people continue to downplay what this really is, what's going on.
In the last 2 weeks, we've had multiple now, not just in Ohio, but in other locations, multiple drag shows that have had literal swastika-carrying Nazis show up. Florida has a robust national socialist scene. That goes without saying, right? So it is dangerous. It is dangerous.
And there's more bigoted policy each day. I mean, we're in the hundreds now of policies out there that target transgender people, and this is what he wants to do.
Let be who they are. It's just not difficult. Just let people be who they are.
It really isn't.
Nobody is a pedophile. Nobody is a groomer. It's just people being who they are. It's just that straightforward and simple. It's insane that this is where we're at in the country. It really is.
It's nuts. I mean, we are going completely backwards. We are going 110% backwards. And this agenda that Ron DeSantis has in Florida, which we're seeing it work in real time. I mean, we're seing the evil work. It is effective.
It's effective.
This is what he wants to do across the country. I mean, honestly, like what Will said, I kind of echo. I've had this conversation with my wife. I said, if Ron DeSantis wins, I think we have to leave. Like we need to leave as quickly as we can if he wins.
I think eventually, and this might sound a little crazy, there was a poll, and I'm trying to remember right now who was putting it out. I can't remember now, but there was a poll about whether people would support. It might have been YouGov. I can't remember. If there would support a dissolution of the United States, meaning there'd be separate countries for right wing, left wing, and a decent amount of people were saying yes to that. I think before that would happen, you'd more likely see states just leave the union.
Yeah, I think you could. I could see that. Like, I could see this entire place just being a complete decentralized wasteland. Like
the country of California.
Well, here's the deal. I had a conversation. I know we kind of gotta finish up the chat and get to right wing insanity, but I had a conversation.
But Will was such a great interview.
Will was awesome. Definitely follow. Proud Twinkie is the handle, and I had this conversation with somebody where we talked about that very thing, like if the United States was to, just dissolve, basically. And the concern that they expressed, which I get, was they were like, well, what about people, in this, like in the states that are really, like a transgender person in Mississippi or Florida or whatever.
Yeah, no, it is a problem. I'm suggesting we shouldn't abandon those folks at all. They need help, but
well, the thing is though, is like they're already kind of screwed over. You know what I mean? It's like if the United States,
but if they have nobody sort of no federal government that's doing any sort of protection, like i.e.,
but they're not doing any protection. Really,
it's becoming less and less.
Because that's why I'm like, well, I feel like no matter
they've been effective
what,
about getting rid of the Voting Rights Act. I mean, you're right. I mean, they've, right-wing extremists exist now on our Supreme Court, which is crazy.
No matter what, if something like that were to happen, there'd be a lot of people in situations where they would need to get out of where they were. But the other side of that is I feel like they're in that situation anyway.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. It's a longer conversation for another day. But Tony D, what's up? Thank you very much for the super chat. Status Coup equals the real deal. Thank you very much for that, Tony. Shout out to our guest, Will. Please follow @ProudTwinkie. Thank you guys for being here today. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to smash the like button. Check out my tour dates at ronplacone.com if you want to see where I'm coming to a city near you. And time for some right-wing insanity.
Indeed. So stay with us. Zach Roberts is my guest. Zach is fantastic. He is somebody who's been on the show a couple times now, but we're going to talk about the Groyper Fest at CPAC. We're going to talk about, obviously, the Nazi rallies at the drag shows and the flat earther running for Senate. Tina Desiree Berg reporting for Status Coup News, and welcome to this week's Right-Wing Insanity Report. On the episode this week, we're going to be speaking with Zach Roberts. He's a friend of the show. He's been on a few times. He covers right-wing extremism. He was part of the crew that did the documentary with Greg Palast on True the Vote. And in fact, let's start with that. Let's get an update on what's happening with the True the Vote lawsuit. I know there's been some movement there that you've been staying on top of, Zach. So what are some of the latest updates?
Well, Fair Fight Action, Stacey Abrams founded group. Mind you, she hasn't been directly involved in that group for a while now. But their like political action arm of their like nonprofit, they sued True the Vote a while back. For their vigilante program, basically our words, not theirs, but they're basically a citizen voter challenge program that they run. And they sued under the Section 11B of the Voting Rights Act, which basically is you can't intimidate voters, you can't threaten people, you can't, hang things over people's heads and that sort of thing, which is what this does because the vigilante vote challenge program has basically what it does is basically immediately doxes people. All of the information that the citizen challengers like Pam Reardon, who, if you've seen Greg Palast, the clips from Greg Palast's film, like you'll see her in her red Reagan outfit, and she basically what they'll do is they'll build faulty information based off of national change of address lists and then Zillow listings and Facebook messages. And that somehow comes together as evidence for them that this person moved or whatever. Never mind, like legal things happen, especially when you're challenging 300,000 people. Yes, some of those people
all at once.
Move.
I mean,
most people who are on these lists, whether it be Chris Kobach's cross-check list or whether it be Eric or whatever thing, most of these people aren't doing anything nefarious. I mean, all of them aren't doing any nefarious. I can say that kind of like as a conclusive thing. What they are doing is that they moved out of the area and just didn't change they didn't call up the election office and say, hey, take me off the list. That is completely legal to do. You should do it because it helps local government or whatever, but it is a hassle as somebody who has done that like properly to do that. And it does take a while for those things to be cleared. But this is the Fair Fight Action. I think they tried to get a summary judgment from the judge to say this needs to end. This entire program needs to end. You need to stop going around saying that you have $1 million bounty on this, which they later clarified saying it's, oh no, it was for legal fees, which of course they're going to, I mean, which to be fair, they were correct in the fact that they would almost certainly get sued. I'm actually genuinely surprised that more voters haven't sued once they know they get their names on this, because again, it's doxing people. It's literally putting, because the county elections offices put this information because it's submitted to them. It's a public amount of info. Literally, their names are listed in transcripts. Found that's one of the number one ways we found things is I either had to do a FOIA to get the full info, but for the most part, it was just like literally on the transcripts of meetings said out loud, and you're immediately accused of basically committing a felony. I mean, that's something that
it's serious. Also, Zach, like they would find people named, I'm just going to say John Smith because it's a common name.
Yeah.
So they would find 5 different individuals with the same name, John Smith, something common, and make the conclusion that they were all the same individual and casting illegal votes, which is absolutely insane. Yeah. Also, given that they could trace like middle names and other information that would automatically have clarified that. But obviously, that's not the point. The point of this quote unquote vigilante system is telling citizens that they can file claims against other voters saying that they're voting illegally and using that to like weaponize these lists, right?
You put out there that we have a list of we have a list of 3,000. I'm slamming my, like doing the McCarthy, it's just like we have a list of 300,000 names of people who are should be purged off the voter rolls, and that we believe that they're felon voters. And this is this is how you raise tons of money off of.
Right.
Yeah, and none of it's true. And like we've time and time again, we find, and this goes back to, the 2000 elections when they did the felon voter purge and ended up stealing the election in Florida. And it's all new forms of Chris Kobach's cross-check, which is just matching names and putting together, and doing, that's the way it works. Suddenly, it's the stupidest thing, because we keep asking these people, do you ever call them? Do you ever contact? Do you send them a letter? Right. And they go, well, no, that's not our job. That is
But it is your job.
But you're literally saying the state elections and county elections offices aren't doing their job. And so what you're doing is inundating them with more information and then harassing them continually about it. We talked to a bunch of elections board officials that are like, these people are I can't say some
harassing them. No, I got you.
But it's basically just a huge harassment campaign. The idea is to intimidate voters, and low key, just the constant hum of voter fraud, constantly hammer them on it. I mean, and again, one of the biggest problems is that this is True the Vote. There's a bunch of other smaller groups that are doing this. Tea Party USA, like kind of old Tea Party groups, and other smaller Republican conservative organizations are doing it. Also, independent people have gone to these classes that they put on, and Conservative Partnership Institute, run by Trump's old lawyer and Mark Meadows. I went undercover to one of their meetings and watched the trainings that they give, hundreds of people at this, this fancy dinner that they had, and this is spreading across the country, and they're going to be try to do Georgia SB 202 style bills in other states, and there's some states that have these things. For
folks that don't know what SB 202 is, what is that?
So SB 202 is basically their voter suppression law. It's basically all of the things that the Republican Party was trying to do in previous years in different ways to stop people from voting or make it harder for people, like making it all but illegal to hand a bottle of water to people in a line. And then also in the same way, making new voter, and I'm doing air quotes here, guys, for anyone listening, just audio, voter integrity laws to push this idea of basically making it harder to vote in every way, shape, and form that they tried before. And then just in general, having this new citizen, the big part of it for at least for me was this citizen voter challenge program that they basically just put out there. And it's a small part of the almost 100-page bill that they put up. It's a small part of the bill, but it honestly is one of the biggest, most important things I think that's out there outside of some other. Yeah.
I mean, they have effectively purged voters off the rolls that were legal voters, made it more difficult for them to vote. So the voter suppression is effective. That's why these right-wing extremists are involved in this and doing this. Yeah. I do want to bring up one of the data expert, Dr. Kenneth Meyer of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who I guess was working with Fair Fight Action. I want to read this quote because I think it's really pertinent. He concluded that True the Vote's challenges were skewed towards counties with higher percentages of Black voters. He explained that 27.3% of individuals overall in the challenge file were African American, but, and this is what's important, 40.3% of the individuals in the duplicated records are African American. So we see almost a double of the percentage there. So clearly they're targeting certain neighborhoods.
Well, I mean, one thing that we found in our film and our way too long amount of research that we put into this for Vigilante, for the documentary Vigilante, is the fact that basically it's just happening I did FOIAs for about 30 different counties. There's like an insane amount of counties in Georgia, like a completely ridiculous amount of counties. But for the most of the high population counties, I did them, and basically you start looking at the census data, and it's just basically where the attempts to purge the voters via this vigilante program are all. It's Fulton, it's Cobb, it's Gwinnett, it's basically all around Atlanta, and then around
South
Athens,
Atlanta.
because. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Atlanta is such a weird. It goes through 3 different counties, and then you have all the suburbs around it as well.
Right.
And so you have basically you. This is your like kind of. We're going to just target this in South Valdosta doesn't have a purge program going on because it's I think it's 89% white. And maybe
I'm guessing Buckhead County doesn't either.
Yeah. I mean, so like any of the larger cities, any of the places near military
where they're
base
wealthy white neighborhoods,
they're going hardcore in that area, and they do pick up. We found a young white man who was part of Pam Reardon's program as well. Actually, if you watch the clip. You can find out our YouTube page, but if you watch the clip from the Pam Reardon interview, that's who we actually are connecting him with, is just a young man who was working for a gas, one of the big gas chains around there as like a technical thing, and just moved because of COVID. Shocker. He moved to like live with his family for a little while and then moved back. And they took that temporary change of address form as proof that he has moved out of the area and then was, basically going to attempt to illegally vote. And the biggest problem. The biggest problem is this program started during the short little time period between the election in 2020 and 2021 when you had the runoff election. And so basically you had all these challenges that happened in a time period where you had all of the election offices were way overworked and they're all way underfunded, way understaffed. And that goes for Fulton County and it goes for Valdosta, wherever. They're all, we really should have, if we were taking voting seriously in this country, we need to actually fund our election offices and not just keep funding new electronic voting machines from whoever donates the most to the Democratic or Republican. Yeah. But anyway.
I agree. So many levels here. There's so many levels because here you have clear voter suppression, which people should be angry about if you're pro-democracy and you want to increase voting rights. Yeah. But the people that are doing this claim they're doing it because they're stopping election fraud, which makes it even more nefarious, right? So now they're putting out this verbiage rhetoric in the world that's like, we're fighting for more democracy, we're fighting for cleaner elections, when the opposite is true. And I think the more they repeat this lie, the more people buy into it. And it's not just the QAnon folks. Obviously, these guys are on board with that. It's not just the Trump folks that are obviously on board with it. But I also see some of these arguments leaking into more left-leaning circles as well. Yeah.
No, I mean the entire voter ID messaging has that the Koch brothers started many years ago.
Right,
and
you're right. It's been going on for a long time.
Mm-hmm. It's shocking how many. It's like why can't you do it? I mean, the quote that I always fall back on is from Barack Obama interview with Al Sharpton, where he just goes, "Well, voting it's the easiest thing you can do." And Al Sharpton was literally just speechless in this interview from many years ago. And it's like, what are you talking about, man? But there is a lot of the Democratic Party that just doesn't understand why it's so hard for people to vote, because, for most of us, it's super easy to vote. We can vote by mail. We can, in states like that.
Depends on if you have money and where you live. I mean, these things are affected by these terms.
I've never had I always vote by mail. And I've never had that challenged. I never had any problems with that.
Right. Neither have I, but I live in California.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it's basically mandatory that way. But it's sad because this group, True the Vote, continually keeps getting hammered legally and fact-wise and they just won't
don't go away
because they keep getting funded by I can't say legal. I can't say the Koch brothers in particular, but like the Koch world, like that kind of network of people.
I'm gonna say dark money, right wing extremist, right wing libertarian money is funding this 100% because there is an added benefit for them. You know, right wing libertarians that are wealthy, they benefit from all of this voter suppression because these voters are typically going to be people that don't agree with their policies. That's clear. Or they're people that want to fight against the billionaires extracting more money from the system. So
I mean these guys will argue about vote dilution, which their big argument, if you hear it, is, well, you know, if one person votes that shouldn't have voted, that dilutes my vote, and under the 14th Amendment, that luckily the judge here, even though this judge has found against fair fight before, is a U.S. District Court Judge Jones. He thankfully was just like, this is a BS argument. This doesn't work. But the fact is that no one has. You can never get a good answer from these guys that, well, what if one person is thrown off the voter rolls because of this? How isn't this then worse? You know what I mean? Like, or if 10,000 people get kicked off the voter rolls that should have been able to vote, then I feel like that's worse than the one theoretical unproven person. I mean, we see this
it is worse.
The nightmare film 2000 Mules, which again, True the Vote and Greg Phillips used this same shoddy information
over and over. They have that one video that went viral, which was a guy dropping ballots into a ballot box. There's nothing nefarious about this. But
he's also suing right now.
Good. I'm glad
suing
he is.
in Georgia. Yeah.
Because it's insane. They were basically saying this guy was committing voter fraud simply by dropping ballots off when I can legally take my sister's ballot and drop it off. And it doesn't mean anything. Like, people that have voted by mail, you'll know this. You sign the outside of the affidavit. Like, there's no way that it leads to voter fraud. It just doesn't. It's a bullshit argument. But they repeatedly put that on autoplay. The QAnon folks.
They have 14 million hours or whatever that they claim of video. And the biggest thing I love about that whole film is they keep hammering that number. We've got millions of hours of video, and it's the same 3 clips that they use again and again and again.
And it's like, show me then. You know what? Publish 14 million. Put it on YouTube. Let's see it.
I mean,
they don't have it.
I would have a very hard time if they showed, like, you know, even 30 clips or even five clips of that. Be like, well, now I have to go through. In fact, and like we've gone through and literally people have figured out who the people are in the videos and talk to them, and they explain what it did. And weirdly, Georgia, who again, we really need to hammer this home, is that Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger are not the heroes of the 2020 election. They are still the villains. They're just a different set of villains. And so it's
just because this Trump's asking him to commit literal election fraud is the bridge too far doesn't mean that he's not engaging in voter suppression.
Because Brian Kemp refused to commit a felony, basically commit treason to steal an election. It
doesn't mean he's not doing voter suppression.
Yes,
I agree.
No.
I agree.
Every day I wake up and decide not to commit murder does not make me a hero.
That's basically it, Zach. That's exactly the argument there, and you're correct. Any other updates on the lawsuit or anything else that's going on with this that we should discuss?
This unfortunately we don't have a date yet on where it's going to go. It is going to trial, which is both good and bad. I think it'll be good to get this information out there. This judge has been not exactly generous to Fair Fight Action previously, but has at least put in some. Like in a previous lawsuit, he at least said that you need to put these people back on the voter rolls. I'm not going to fine for Raffensperger, but I'm not going to fine for Fair Fight Action against Raffensperger in a previous lawsuit. But the state does need to do a better job. And
Raffensperger is the Secretary of State.
Yes, apologies. Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I just assume people don't know all this.
Yeah, he's the wildly less popular, and basically everyone hates him except because the far left or the left hates him, and then the far right. But he hits that center sweet spot, kind of like Brian Kemp is able to as well. Except he's, I think his career is completely dead. Thankfully, as if he decides not to run again. But that said, he is doing an incredible amount of damage by pushing these things through. And Brian Kemp, again, is the guy that signed SB SB 202 into law. And
That's right.
this is all the stuff that he did and wanted to have in law that he didn't want to have these pesky lawsuits and Stacey Abrams groups going after him. And so this is hopefully at least going to out this and kind of out the methods of these people, because like outside of our film, this is barely talked about at all.
No, you're right. It's not. And
so.
People need to be paying more attention to this, because it's not just happening in Georgia. It's happened in Texas. It's happened in Ohio. It's happened in Florida. So this is something that's been repeated throughout the South and the Midwest. And it's very detrimental to folks' voting rights. All right. CPAC. CPAC. All right, let's talk about CPAC. I want to talk about the Groypers, which we've discussed on the show before. This is Nick Fuentes's far-right group. I would call them neo-Nazis. I don't think that's an exaggeration. If you're saying you have praise for Hitler and you're anti-Semitic and you want to hang the N-word, you're a Nazi. I'm sorry, that's what you are. Yep. So he was kicked out of CPAC, which I thought was interesting. But then he went and held a Groyperfest at a hotel, which incidentally, which I thought this is kind of wild sidebar. That same night in the hotel, CPAC was having their Shabbat, which is in the same location.
That was a weird one. Yeah, that was a weird one. Walking into the Residence Inn across the street from the I believe it's the Omni where where CPAC happens, and seeing the big sign and seeing all these people with and the big sign is like what the CPAC Young Kippur meetings and everything like that, and then seeing these Jewish people here and just kind of
and then there's a bunch of Nazis coming in. I'm surprised honestly that a fight didn't break out between you and me.
I did have one gentleman who I believe was there for the Kippur celebrations or meetings, and he was being we photographed him outside the thing. He was wearing a big MAGA hat, big brand new red hat, and I kind of assumed that he was part of that crew. He actually came over and said, "I'm Jewish." And I don't have any problem with what. No, he said, and then he said, "I don't want to be photographed because I'm not part of them, but because I have a job that I worry about." And then he clarified, though, "I don't have any problem with what they say or that they're saying it." And we're just kind of like, whoa.
Wait, but does he actually know what they're saying? Because they hate him and want to see him hanging by a rope. I mean, this is the crap I don't understand. It's insane.
He pretty clearly said, pretty clearly knew that it was like Fuentes's group. At least that was my kind of understanding of what he said to us.
Listen, I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not. There's a lot of far-right Jewish folks that are fine with Nazis.
The CPAC, people that were there, not official CPAC, but the CPAC attendees that were there also were pretty aggressive against the press trying to film. I was specifically trying not to film. Like I did like a couple pans of thing, trying not to get faces because I don't want to get that kind of involved in any sort of anyone that was going to the Kippur meetings, to assume that they're part of this meeting. But they were really aggressive and getting in our face and getting us out of the hotel to not be able to film in there. And so I don't know what that was about.
That was the hotel security, or
no. Hotel security never threatened or never trespassed or anything. This was literally
Groyper security.
This is people. Yes, this was CPAC goers, not even official people or whatever that were pushing us out. I did get pushed out by.
In fact, I want to play that clip. In fact, so you basically were kicked out by these Groypers because they thought you were Chris Mathias from the Huffington Post, which you're not, you and Chris don't look alike. But it's actually some funny video. So let's play that, Colin. I don't know if you have it or not. If not, we'll just insert it here later. We'll insert it later. So, all right. So the guy walks up to you first, and he's basically saying, "Love, love, love speech. Love. Yep. We love everybody." Blah, blah, blah. And then, by the time you get to the end of the video, we hate you. We hate you.
Yes, they're calling me gay. They're calling me fat. They're calling me, and I'm just like, wow, cool. It's middle school all over again, guys.
It is. I know, right?
I've been
so
overweight
sad.
since I was 5, so this is nothing new.
Honestly, I think it pisses them off when they can't get under people's skin. I've had some of these guys, slide into my DMs on Twitter with just ridiculous misogynistic claims, and you read it and you start laughing. You're like, is that supposed to piss me off? I think you're pathetic.
It's because it's also like, you know, this is I've been covering these guys for quite a while, and this is their kind of go-to thing, and it has been interesting to watch their kind of arc of they were briefly friendly to me quite a bit, and then then
they're not
very much,
one
I don't
day.
know if they, I don't know if they weirdly again, because like Nick now knows who I am. He's posted tweets of mine on his Telegram and insulted. I don't even remember what the insults were. But I guess his groypers don't know because again, they think I'm Huffington Post reporter. Chris Mathias, again, who is, I wish I was as tall as he was, and he is much skinnier.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You guys do not look alike. It's just so bizarre.
I know. Yeah, no. Like, I mean, white people look the same, but but not that much. Like, I also had like a beard. It was just like, and so like it was hilarious because it literally got to the point where I'm just like, I don't want because everyone else was filming as well, and they were filming with their cell phones, and I'm just like, I literally had to pull out my press credentials and go, I'm Zach, like I am not, and then Grayson Arnold, an actual literal Nazi who I have had run-ins with a couple times at CPAC because he's continually allowed there, never kicked out, weirdly. He walked by and I was like, Grayson, you know who I am. And then he just
I heard that. I assumed that was Grayson Arnold. I wasn't sure. So Grayson Arnold runs a Telegram and a blog called Pure Politics. He has made, I've seen them myself, even though some people apparently don't want to believe this, but he has made Hitler flattering posts in there. It's not, I don't think you're out on a limb calling him a neo-Nazi. So he was.
I feel like he's worn the outfit. I feel like I've seen a photo of him in. Like, I mean, all these guys. I mean, here's the thing too: is that like.
Well, he hangs out with Ryan Sanchez, which is a guy that came out of the Rise Above movement, which is also a neo-Nazi group, who will be on trial at the end of the year in November for their actions at Charlottesville and Huntington Beach and Berkeley. So, but these groups, these guys are all friends. They share their posts on in their Telegram rooms and whatnot. They were so Ryan Sanchez and Grayson Arnold were at the Capitol 2 weeks ago. They were invited there by a congressman. So there's definitely an infiltration, and you can't tell me this congressman doesn't know who these guys are. He knows. He doesn't care. So
I mean, you don't. They don't get. I don't think they get an invite.
The guy from Montana. I can't think of his name right now, but he's from Montana. But point being is that they obviously have empathy towards these white supremacist ideals. They're not afraid of them at this point because they are becoming more normalized in conversation. I mean, my God, if you have Jewish folks attending their Shabbat saying they're okay with, groypers that are like, no, we hate Jews. We want, Day of the Rope. I'm going to go Turner Diaries. I've seen them make these posts, right? They're going to hang you at the end of the rope.
But Nick was laughing right afterwards. He was just making a joke about it. And that's usually how he gets the pass and's gone this far. I mean, running the whatever Kanye campaign, I think I thought was going to be at least that disaster was going to be somewhat of the end of more mainstream acceptance of Nick, but it actually seemed to be somewhat the opposite, which is pretty terrifying. It's because it says more about what the kind of standards of the Republican Party is. It says more about the
temperature of the Republican Party than it does anything else. I agree with you. And in fact, one of the guys in your video says "Ye 2024," and I'm like, I thought that would put a pitchfork in that. I thought that was done, but apparently,
the security guard who is in full face mask and I think a bulletproof vest glasses and everything, like you can't see him, and was he wasn't pushing me out because I didn't let him, but he kept putting his hand in front of the camera and threatening me with trespass. And he obviously was not part of Marriott security, and Marriott security never once came out there. He had a yay hashtag yay 24 or whatever patch on his vest. The interesting thing about that is that by far the most aggressive people about threatening us with arrest and threatening us to get us was the local police departments, who were making sure that it was as difficult as possible for us to film anywhere near, because the weirdness of where CPAC National Harbor, basically everything is private property. There's absolutely nothing that's basically there's nowhere to be that's public property. And so even though Marriott security never once asked us to leave, the police department said they don't want you here. Literally was working for the groypers. This is not a frightful. Marriott, or this is not the groypers asked Marriott to have us removed. This
was in DC or Baltimore?
Yeah. This is National Harbor, so it's Washington, I think. And it's a weird town area, but it's the Gaylord Convention Center kind of area.
Okay.
And the police department was like weirdly aggressive about making sure that we weren't like once we got moved out, we were like, okay, we're not gonna get into a fight, or we're not gonna do anything. Like, it was me, Ford Fisher, and a couple other journalists, and we all were like, okay, we're just filming out here. And then there's like, well, the sidewalk's private property, so if Marriott asks you to leave, you're gonna have to leave. And we're like, where can we be then? And it was like across the street, and they were just like, of course they're doing the standard police thing, which is, oh, we don't know, or we're not going to get into this.
And you all had your press credentials on?
Yeah, of course we have. Yeah, we have our
frightful.
Credentials out. We all have cameras, and everything like that. And so it's sad because it was like 5 police officers like standing there blocking us filming at different times. The amount of police. And it's just,
I wouldn't see, knowing me, I would have gotten myself in trouble. I would have pushed on that. They have no right to do that. There's still a First Amendment in this
asking,
country.
and I wouldn't even ask who complained. I asked who asked you to do this, and they, other than saying that Marriott didn't ask, they wouldn't specify who asked us to leave.
Is there video of this?
I might have other clips of it. I'm pretty sure probably Ford has clips of it because he never stops filming. So I switch it back and forth between shooting video and still photos. So
right,
but yeah,
wow, that's scary.
It's sad, but it's not. I mean, as we keep discovering more and more, there's that the story about the number of Proud Boys interaction with the DC Police Department, which again, Fort Fisher and I have documented pretty well. That they basically work in cahoots with each other, at least in a very friendly situation where that I've never seen.
I would imagine that many of them are actually Proud Boys. I mean, we've had.
I think there's at least 1 or 2 that are Proud Boys in the DC area. And again, they don't do anything about it, which is, I guess, sadly not true. Which is again like why when everyone talking about January 6th, like that was my biggest thing. It's like we have several police departments that work in DC, and all of them seem to be very friendly to far right groups that are going to show up there. So like, yeah.
It's very scary. No shit, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Was there anything at the proper CPAC that is worth mentioning? It seemed like it was a little bit low key this time.
I mean, we had, basically this is my 3rd CPAC in like a year, which is, I think, a little bit too much for anyone who cares about their mental health. Like all the CPACs now, the number one thing is trans people. You would imagine it has the exact same kind of conversational, like what they're focusing on as talking about Muslims after 9/11. Like it is the level of
it's reached a ridiculous fever pitch.
I mean, it is. I mean, the fact that we're not seeing larger. I mean, I guess we are seeing larger killing, but I mean that the fact that every single one at least had a joke, the constant joke of, hi, my name is insert conservative figure here, and my pronouns are guns, liberty, and America, and like and I'm not exaggerating here, after the 20th person who made that joke over 3 CPACs, it's really bad. But also then you have
and it's not even funny. It's just stupid.
Yeah, I mean it never was funny, but I mean it also is, it's also like, you have to be listening to other people feed that joke. That people are just sitting there. Anyway, I'm trying to,
No, you're not
I used
wrong.
to work with
You're
a
not
lot
wrong.
of comedians. It's like, it'd be like you change up your set if you hear the person before you make the same joke about something. Like I feel like whatever, but one of the biggest things was, and of course I'm blanking on his name right now because fuck him, but you had a political commentator who basically called for the end of transgenderism, which of course he's trying to say it's like, it's the cultural movement to turn people trans or something like that. But it's just like, you wouldn't say that about you. It's just like, I'm calling, so if a speaker went on stage and said, I'm calling for the end of Judaism, like that's genocide talk.
It absolutely is genocide talk. And it also doesn't take into consideration that there are actually people physically born with varying degrees of both sex organs and whatnot. We should kill these folks? That's the way. Like, it's disgusting. It is genocidal. And you know what? Can I just mention this as a sidebar? The TERFs that are engaging in the same rhetoric are beyond offensive.
Yeah. No,
I don't think they hear themselves.
It's Michael Knowles, by the way. No, Michael Knowles is the terrible speaker who he got a ton of press about this. Probably worked well for him. I don't know if he's trying to go for the kind of like, shock, I'm so out there sort of thing. But anyway,
maybe, I don't know. I don't know enough about him, but it was offensive.
People, but
yeah. It was offensive.
But he's also like doubled down on it in this entire conversation about this idea that like, because I mean, again, this is all part of the dehumanization of anybody who is trans, or honestly, and it's also spreading. Again, we're going very quickly backward against the rest of LGBT communities and everything like that. And so now
I agree. We've now reached the fever pitch level where I'm actually seeing people say that all gay people are pedophiles, which is absolutely insane.
Oh, yeah.
That is a Nazi trope, by the way. I don't know if people realize that. Hitler didn't just go after Jewish folks. Before he went after the Jewish folks, he went after individuals that he thought were deviant in society, right? So that could mean mental illness, homosexual, a whole host of folks. So let's turn now to Ohio, because we had a similar thing that just happened in Ohio where there was a drag queen story hour and literal Nazis from at least 4 different organizations that I can point out in the video showed up to protest this. We had White Lives Matter, we had Patriot Front, we had Poll House's new organization, Blood Tribe. So apparently he's moved from Maine to Ohio now, I guess. And some others, but let's play a little bit of clip of this so folks can see what we're talking about.
I got a question. I got a question. When's the last time you had a Nazi salute? Right now. Oh, there we go. Go, boy. Right yeah. Yeah. Fuck you, you fascist pig. Fucking faggot. You faggot. Pig. Fuck you, pedophile.
Or not. You can do what that's better. You just sit there and smile.
I said, touching my son. How about if you guys turn your megaphone down to like civilized people?
Shut up! Stop threatening people!
Not like civilized people!
Yeah, keep running them up! Keep running them up! You're real quiet now! Back up! Yeah, that's what I'm doing! Go run! Go run! Go run!
You're still my generation's right! You're getting shit! So fuck your ass up! Get caught!
Don't engage! Don't engage! Stop it! Now! Stop! You can just pass the fuck along! It's all right? Don't engage now!
Are you fucking serious? One guy! As we're escorting him, he attacks us! Free! Life! Liberty! Victory! Arrest him!
You want to see a German man? You want to see a German man? You want to see a German man? You're weak. Take your own ass home. You want to be a Nazi.
Am I a Nazi or am I a wannabe Nazi?
You're a wannabe, dude. They've been dead for like fucking years.
Here we are raising the banner, bud. We ain't going nowhere, buddy.
Hey.
You got nothing to say to me, Fruit Loop. Get the fuck out of my face. Get the fuck out of my face.
What do you mean by that? I heard the...
normalized, pedophilia is right behind it. And if there's an example in history where that's not the case, please show me. But I can think of about 20 examples, and every single time it's homosexuality is normalized, pedophilia within 10 years is right behind it.
Slippery slope.
Slippery slope. We saw it coming back in 2005.
You deserve what you tolerate, man. Don't tolerate this shit.
Yet they never tell us what books they burn. The books they burned included transgender ideas, sex changes on little children who were unwilling. The main Jewish professor who organized these such events was Jewish, and he had his own little kid that he had as a sex slave. Why more conditions? Why more solutions?
Okay, I don't even know where to begin with this, Zach. I do want to, before we start the discussion, I want to read a post that we received from one of the parents that attended this with their children. And you see these children in the video, right? These Nazis were yelling at the children. This is what the mom said. Her name is Kelly Hayworth. So I was there with my friend, not her mother, sorry, her friend was the mother. She was there with them. So I was there with my friend, her 9-year-old son, and 3 other friends. The event was purely innocent. A drag queen read a storybook for the kids and sang 4 songs. There was a raffle with prizes for prizes like a bicycle and a scooter. We had a great time. When we left to go to our car, those Nazi fucks in the red shirts followed us en masse, screaming vile things at us and the child with us. Things like, to the one male member of the group, "Hey, you gonna take this little boy home and fuck him good tonight?" My male friend was walking beside the kid. There was no way that child wouldn't have heard that. To be perfectly clear, the anti-drag protesters were all screaming at us and the child who was with us. The only obscene acts were perpetuated by the Nazis and the other hate groups that showed up. So that was the friend of one of the kids that was there. I want to point something out. So just so folks can understand some of the language and some of the background stuff here, because unless you file white supremacy circles, some of this is going to be kind of confusing, right? So the battleground Europa, right? So this is a white supremacist documentary movie. I don't know what you want to call this.
Yeah.
You hear them saying "get the rope." So this is a reference to the Turner Diaries. At the end of the Turner Diaries, which is a white supremacy literature, it's been around a long time. In fact, Timothy McVeigh was handing this out at Waco, Texas, before he did the bombing in Oklahoma City.
By the way, the anniversary of Waco is coming up, and it coincides with when Trump is having his rally down in Waco. But yeah.
I did not realize that. Holy crap. Yeah. All right, that's interesting. So get the rope. This is Day of the Rope. Day of the Rope is when the white supremacists basically literally hang everybody that is not one of them. So hanging on the end of the rope are going to be gay folks. Hanging on the end of the rope are going to be black folks, Jewish folks, anybody that doesn't, are not what they consider to be, Aryan, whatever, is going to get hung. That's what Day of the Rope is. So, and then the Weimar Solution things, really wild stuff there. That's the White Lives Matter group that was parodying that information. One of the things the guy says is that there's been plenty of examples where homosexuality was normalized in a culture, and then 10 years later, pedophilia was normalized. There's literally 0 examples of that happening. None, yeah. 0. Are you kidding me? There is no fucking country where pedophilia has been normalized. I mean, but this is the kind of stuff that is really dangerous rhetoric that they believe it. And so, now they're out here acting on this. The guy that looked like he had a gun, it turns out that was some sort of pepper spray thing. It did look like a handgun to me when I saw it.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it's a pepper, like it shoots pepper shells type of thing.
Which is also unacceptable that the cops didn't pull him down for that. I was like,
seriously? Well, you watch the video, and it's the thing that always, it's tiring. You see 2 people fight, and the only person that gets pulled away is the generalized left person, whoever it is, that isn't a Nazi, and then the Nazi gets to walk away. And it happened there multiple times in that video. And you can watch it and just go, well, if that person deserved to get pulled away, then that person also does. Like whether or not whether it's just a scuffle and things happen or whatever, but like it's shocking that it continually, like, no matter where, this is Ohio, no matter where it happens
in California too. Absolutely does.
Exactly. I mean, Portland is one of the worst places to be to try to fight against extremism, and because the cops will go after you, and they will literally, again, as I always say, always know where the police have their backs to, and that's who they trust.
That's who they trust. The fact that they trust, but you know what's wild about that, Zach? Right-wing extremists are responsible for far more violence in this country, including violence against the police. So it's shocking to me that time and time again, you see the police force only facing what they describe as Antifa, BLM, whatever, and with their backs towards the guys that 9 times out of 10 are responsible for crimes against them. How is this a thing? But it is.
The Venn diagram of the sovereign citizen movement, who are anti-gun or anti-gun,
anti-government,
anti-police, anti-government,
they're pro-gun,
anti-law enforcement in general. They're definitely not anti-gun. And versus like the even farthest left that are like very much ACAB, very much like we need to get rid of the police forces. I can't.
But the reason they want to let me point this out. The reason they want to get rid of the police forces is because the police forces are biased, and biased policing in many respects, these folks believe that biased policing is worse than no policing, which is an understandable argument.
Yeah. No, but my thing is, but the idea that like those two like groups of people who are like I hate to use the word rabidly anti-police, and the fact that one group kills police
and the other really doesn't
on the regular, and the other side does not, and which side is going to be going after it? It's just
hell,
you have an
let me say this. You can go to the FBI databases and see this for a fact. This is the FBI. This isn't some lefty organization that's monitoring these things, but you can go to their database and see for yourself that 99.9% of violence against police officers is done by right-wingers.
Well, I mean,
or terrorist attacks, whatever. Look at
all
it.
those Nazis out there are undercover feds anyway. And this is sarcasm. I just want to immediately, so no one can edit that I'm actually saying that. But no, that's the constant trope.
That is the constant trope. Yeah, Patriot Front is the feds, which is ludicrous.
This brawl or this rally will say, oh, well, all those people are just undercover feds anyway. So
yeah,
they're always
all right. So we had, by my account, we had Patriot Front, which came late, so they missed some of the beginning part of it. We had the White Lives Matter folks, which there's crossover on, let's be clear. Yeah. White Lives Matter has crossover with many of these groups, not just Patriot Front. We had a couple Proud Boys that I saw in there. And then Poll House's new group, which is called Blood Tribe. Yeah. I mean, take what you want from that. But his telegram is hardcore Nazism. Hardcore. They were carrying a swastika flag. I mean, this is a guy that's been around the white supremacist movement for a long time. He
supposedly is also building a compound in Maine now. He owns a couple acres that he's trying to convince people to do up there.
I thought he maybe abandoned that and went to Ohio. I'm not really clear on what's going on there. He did, he was doing that in Maine. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. I was wondering this, actually. Is he moving to Ohio now? Did he abandon that project? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I would be hard pressed if anyone would decide to move from Maine to Ohio, but sorry.
But again, so my cautionary tale is this: we are the over 10 window is moving to the right. That's obvious. The fact that these guys feel empowered enough, actual skinheads, white power skinheads. Let's be clear, show up to these things and are doing Sig Heils should concern lots of folks. It is being normalized. We've been here before. This is not the first time in American history that we've been there. I'd say this happened in the 90s as well. Yep. But the point being is that hatred is like a virus and it spreads. And the more normalized Republicans are getting red-pilled more to the right. The fact that you see this happening. Now, I want to also point out, interestingly enough, Nick Fuentes was making posts about this in his channel on Telegram, that he doesn't want to be associated with these skinheads, that they're, brutish or whatever. But my thing is like, Nick, are you fucking kidding me? You're no different than they are. Just because you wear a suit and a tie doesn't mean, as opposed to, combat boots or whatever, doesn't mean that you're any different. The nonsense you believe in espouse is exactly the same.
Yeah, no. The guy that I was talking to at the Groyper rally at the Marriott, one thing that I always note, because I try to figure out some way to actually get people to start talking, and one is just like they're usually well coiffed, they're well dressed, And he was talking about how this is what this is what well-dressed men would wear in the 30s. I forget his exact quote at this point. And I'm just like, well, that's interesting. Why do
what do you like about the 30s?
Like the 30s so much? And he says, well, you weren't there. There's a lot of
you were all dead or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, which is weird. I'm not sure what that was supposed to mean. I thought that was a strange flex.
Yeah, no. I mean, the implications to that. Yeah. Anyone who knows any sort of history about Europe during the 30s would know what that means and why.
Oh, it's a reference to Nazi. Yeah, 100%. I agree, but it was a strange flex to say.
He's not wearing like 1930s American outfits, which you would think America First, like say Roger Stone wears his weird Al Capone.
It's a subtle swastika outfit. It's a subtle SS. Like, I get the reference. It's they think that they can sway more folks to their side if they dress in a different manner or whatnot, and they don't want to be associated with skinheads because they think that's just too over the top, and that the normies won't be able to be swayed to their opinion. I don't think that that's either true or false. I think what comes out of their mouth is the same, and people recognize that.
Well, these are people who don't it's very rare that you see the groypers getting into actual physical fights and that sort of thing. And at least in my experience, like watching and that sort, and they'll use words to heckle people. They're very, for the most part, these are people that look like they do a lot of like data work and IT, and that sort of. And it seems like they keep coming out. And this is not like it's not trying to do a pejorative or anything like that. It's just the fact that like every single time like it comes out, it seems like that's what they're doing. It's like they're working in IT or something like that. And so that like, because again, they like most of these people have, going to this thing wasn't cheap. Hotel prices at the thing were like $400 a night.
Wow.
And
so
like,
they can afford
I was staying on the other side of the water. I was staying in Virginia, not in this resort area, because I certainly couldn't afford to stay at the Omni, which was $500 a night, or at the Residence Inn, which was where they were having their little Nazi meeting. And so, these people certainly have money to somehow, but they don't like to fight. They don't like to get into that. They're the people, I believe, that like these are the people that will knock at your door, and other people will come and take you away. You watch. He's the I forget the name of the actor in Jojo Rabbit. He's the very tall guy with gloves and shows up at JoJo's house and basically quietly interviews people. Like these are the administrators of the fascist state that they want. They're not the thugs.
They're not the thugs. They're not the jackbooted thugs.
Yeah, which is a lot easier way to get people who normally have like the fascist kind of tendencies that they'd like. I'm not like saying all gamers are like this, but I'm just saying, it's like the kind of gamer kids or whatever that love the edgy language and want to be edgelords.
They want to be edgelords. They think it's cool,
but they don't want to do all the sit-ups.
Well, they don't want to. Yeah, they don't want to do the sit-ups, and they don't want to.
I say this as somebody who's completely out of shape. So.
All right, now it's time to do some right-wing insanity roundup. Are you ready, Freddie?
Sure.
All right, so first up, we have, Fuentes doing what he does best, because we've talked about him today on the show, and that is being a fascist. Let's play this clip.
Yep.
Years ago, I'll never forget when Trump was asked during the transition, are you really going to arrest Hillary Clinton? And he was like, no, I don't think I need to do that. It's like you shoulda. You should have dragged Obama by his nappy hair. No, I'm kidding. But you should have dragged Obama by his basketball jersey through the courts. You should have dragged Hillary Clinton and the Podestas. It should have been Pizzagate on trial. It should have been Fast and Furious and the Ukraine whatever thing, the Kazakhstan deal. What was the big gas deal? It should have been all those things playing out in court. It should have been Hillary Clinton and Obama in an orange jumpsuit and a paddy wagon. That's what it should have been. But instead we said, oh, we're not going to do that. Oh, no, well, we're going to represent everybody, and we're going to do a First Step Act. It should have been brutal and unforgiving and unrelenting and intense and unstoppable. That's what it should have been. Deportations, depriving people of the vote, building a wall, disregarding the courts, disregarding Congress, arresting the opposition. It should have been that.
So what I want to point out here is that he's not discussing maybe, looking into some of the political corruption that might have happened under these administration. What he's talking about, and he says it, the last part is really clear to me, disregarding the courts, disregarding anything. He just wants to arrest political dissidents that aren't in line with what the fascist state that he wants in place to be put.
Yeah. No, I mean that's always their dream. They want to be able to use the courts and use the law enforcement and the state when it's against their enemies, but not for them. And one of the things that has kind of I think that Trump was supposedly going to get arrested yesterday, on Tuesday, and obviously did not, and is probably, my guess is that maybe he'll be brought in for questioning, or basically fly into himself, is that these people live on their own kind of different law books than we all live on. Like if I had made $130,000 shady payment to cover up something that was illegal, and I don't think that the police would say, "Hey, Zach, would you mind, coming up? What time works for you?" And so like these guys live on a different, different set of laws. But what they want is that, and it's always been that way for Trump, like since the late 70s, and so they want that for everybody, and they want it only to be used against their enemies. Again, like
against their, they don't give a shit about law and order at all. These guys are fascists. What they care about is implementing the policies that they want to implement. And to them, that doesn't mean justice. It doesn't mean democracy. It means like, I'm going to do what I want to do, and if I can't do it the proper way, quote unquote, then just fucking arrest him for no reason, put him in jail, and be done with it. It's like Pinochet, right? That's exactly what they want.
Yeah. I mean, there is a reason why they wear. If you see a T-shirt with a helicopter and like stick figures falling out of it, I mean that's a standard Proud Boy T-shirt that they would sell all the time. Pinochet did nothing wrong is another one. I'm not quite sure that if it's like it's been, let's say, Enrique Tarrio did nothing wrong, Roger Stone did nothing wrong, and Pinochet did nothing wrong, which is an interesting trilogy of people that you'd want to have on T-shirts saying did nothing wrong, but especially considering all of them did very well documented things. There's a lot of documentation saying that they did things at least that were wrong in so much as against the law at the time in the country that they were in. But I mean, one of the biggest things that worries me about the last couple of years is that we've done almost nothing. I would say nothing to kind of go, oh, well, here's the way that the former president used the system and its legal machinations and his legal machinations to work it so that we got to January 6th and so that we got to this point. And we've decided, because again, as I was literally having this conversation with somebody on Twitter about it, who was very hopeful, about like, well, I think that one of these crimes will stick, whether it be the ones in Georgia, or whether it be the other ones that are in New York. And I'm going, here's the thing, is that like, he's going to always find a way out of it. And the fact that the federal government never wants to do anything that will take away the power from the next guy, and the fact that like Biden is never going to sign a law to say, here's something that presidents can't do. When the president does it, it is illegal, because he wants
the same ability. He doesn't. They don't want to be held accountable for. I agree with you. It's a problem.
There's a reason why the Biden administration spoke out against Putin being tried potentially at the ICC. Like they sent out a note.
The United States, absolutely. The United States does not want to be brought in front of the ICC because we have absolutely 100% committed war crimes. And you've seen this time and time again, not to digress into a different subject, but you're correct on that. All right. Vincent James, who is Nick Fuentes' treasurer, took it to the next level, though. Let's play that clip.
When we get power, there can be no mercy. If Trump gets power again, there can be no mercy. When we say we're going to arrest someone, arrest them. When you say you're going to arrest Hillary Clinton, arrest her, and even much more than that. And then when you have power in, like, let's say individual states, you have to make sure that you keep that power. You have to do whatever it takes to keep that power and grow that power, to make sure that that power is never subverted, is never taken away from you. We must force younger generations to think the way that we do. That's what needs to be done. At this point, it's either indoctrinate or be indoctrinated. And remember, when we teach something, or when I say this, just remember that what we're teaching and what we're trying to make people believe and what we're trying to convince people of is right and just. And what they're trying to make people believe or convince people of is wrong and evil. This is a spiritual battle.
This is absolutely insane to me. So again, it's not about enforcing any sort of justice or law. It's about holding on to power, no matter what that entails, no matter how unjust that is. And it's about keeping the people that they agree with in place, and everybody else is evil. It's really dangerous rhetoric, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, this has been slowly building. I don't know if even slowly is the correct term, but I mean, this has been slowly building. I mean, this is the same language that we hear, that we can go back in our history books and if watch the History Channel and listen to this rhetoric, and it's going on again. But again, we can never talk about the fact that this is the slow march to where we're to what Germany went through in the late 30s.
Oh, 100% is. It absolutely is.
And it's like, I feel like I've been, I actually spoke out quite a bit, like, do not call, like, George Bush is not Hitler. George Bush is not Hitler. Donald Trump is not Hitler. He may dream to be Hitler, but I don't think he's capable in the administrative way.
No, but many of his followers absolutely are. Yeah. That's the dangerous point, right?
But as we move towards, I mean, one of the big things about this country is that we have such, and it's been continually being with this Supreme Court, that the level of states' rights. And so you don't even need to have a president anymore. You can have a tin pot dictator in Florida,
Kansas,
or in Texas, or wherever, that slowly builds enough power that, and if you have a federal government that has either is incapable or unwilling to stand up against them, like we see continually, many administrations has refused to stand up against Georgia's massive voter suppression programs. We see literally it takes Stacey Abrams' nonprofit to actually fight these laws, not the DOJ and that sort of thing is not standing up against a literal voter vigilante program or any of these other programs. The federal government is not standing up for trans people. The DOJ is not standing up for, even though there are laws on the books that these things are very clearly violating, but because it's not trans people aren't politically viable enough to be somebody that they're willing to spend their political capital on. It's like, it's not going to matter in 2024 when they run Biden and Biden ends up losing because because he's just wildly not popular, and right. Compared to what he would need to be to win. I mean, he's popular, more popular than Trump was, but he's not.
But that's such a low bar. Yeah, that's a low bar.
We
cannot constantly be running candidates where the bar we're judging them by is he's better than the other guy. It's not enough. It's not enough.
The lesser of evils has been since I first time voted in 2000, all the way through.
It's been a parade of lesser evils. I agree.
We've never had. I mean.
And each time it gets worse, right? Each time the lesser evil is worse than the previous election. It's insane.
I mean, we're past. I mean, Joe Biden is past. I mean, is basically on Bill Clinton when it comes to the left, and supposedly he's a communist according to some people, but which is wild. I mean, like, what kind of communist allows oil drilling in Alaska? Like,
none.
Even though we
the answer to that is none. Yeah.
But it's it's just like okay, I get it. Like I have long given up on the idea that we're ever going to have a progressive in the White House. It's not fine, but it's fine. I'm going to do it. But I do not want somebody who's going to end up having to lose against whoever that the Republican Party puts up, because if they put up a DeSantis, and we already see this in the media, like if Trump goes, whatever happens with Trump and he just ends up not being the nominee somehow, it's not like his fans go away. His fans have already kind of like accepted that Donald Trump may not be whatever. Obviously that shows in the fact that he's been holding rallies at tiny, small venues and things like that. I mean, like he knows his numbers very well on people who are signing up. The reason that he made his presidential announcement in front of, I think, like 1,000 people was because he couldn't get 10,000. And
Right.
so like he's not going to not go for the big show. I mean, this is what this man is all about. But you have somebody like DeSantis who's already, I mean, the Christian Science Monitor wrote this glowing article about his environmental policy. You had the New York Times write at least one or two pieces about, oh, well, he's walking a different walk. He's a different guy. And you know, mind you, like,
It's scary, and he's far more dangerous in many aspects.
He's
as far
effective.
as I'm concerned.
Like that's the big thing. I mean, I think he's still somewhat of an incompetent, and thank God that he is an incompetent. But it is going to be maybe we survive 2024 and, you know, and get a lesser evil or something like that. But this march continually keeps going on.
The march continues. It has to end. Yeah, I agree.
We lose state house after state house. It's not going to matter who's the president. Even if Bernie Sanders wins in 2024, it doesn't matter if 40 out of the 50 states have right-wing state legislatures and the Supreme Court is still packed with.
I agree.
Yeah.
With extremists, right-wing extremists, because I'm going to call it what it is. That's what they are.
Yeah, I felt like it was implied.
I'm just going to say it at this point because I feel like that's where we are. All right. My next clip is a super far right guy. His name is Pete Santelli. He calls on martial law basically to round up Obama and a few other people. Let's play that.
Get the military, whatever few are left that are going to side with the people that are standing there holding candles and banging pots and pans and expressing the will of the people. That you military personnel and you people with guns and badges and law enforcement will succumb to the will of the people. And ultimately, we absolutely demand that the criminals in this country, if you want them held accountable, the criminals are Barack Obama, Eric Holder, Susan Rice, all this entire criminal cabal that came about as a result of the murder of John F. Kennedy. The people that perpetrated the murder of John F. Kennedy, rise up to that. Military, join us and put all of them up against the concrete wall, just like Ceausescu, and do what we must do to save not just our country, the entire world.
Okay, so many things that are wrong here. The will of the people only means people that agree with him. It's not the will of the people. If the majority of people disagree with him, they go up against the concrete wall and get killed as well. Arrest everyone. So we see a ratcheting up of rhetoric here. Notice that his list of the criminal cabals are just people he disagrees with. I mean, these guys don't want democracy. They hate it. They hate democracy because democracy won't give them the fascist, theocratic policies that they want in place.
See, I actually worry that it will. I worry that we're working towards that because of the way that...
we are working towards that, but it's still not a majority of people in the country.
It's not quick
you know
enough.
what I mean?
I mean, this is the wild thing.
It's not quick enough.
If I was more like a political partisan person in that way, I would just be like, we're fucking winning, guys. Like, I know, don't nobody slow down, but like, and I understand you have to be continually under attack, but it is interesting because I wonder what they're like, if they genuinely believe that they're losing and that they believe this rhetoric, that they're losing, that they're continually losing, and that we're and again, like left of Joe Biden is quote unquote winning. And that this is so much under threat. And I go, where is this proof? Like, where is this proof that's happening? Like, and literally the only usually proof that I can possibly find, like that, whether it be at CPAC or wherever else, it's like, well, there's TV shows that have interracial.
Yeah.
And there's, remember that Cheerio ads where there was a mom and a dad, and one of them was black and one of them was white. There's oh my God, you go into a Target. And there's rainbow colors and trans people on our models, and like that's losing. Meanwhile, they're literally like, oh yeah, all the books in libraries can be pulled that have any mention of.
Meanwhile, yes, DeSantis is outlawing and banning books that are. Yeah, I agree with you. They are winning in a lot of legislation, but the problem is these groups are so insular and they live in echo chambers that become more and more extreme. As time goes by. So they do believe that it's not enough and they get riled up with anger. Yeah. And that's what keeps moving the Overton window to the right. All right. Oh, go ahead.
Do you know what I actually genuinely want to know. What is the JFK?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, hang on, that's a QAnon.
Like that's one that I'm just like, is it? I assume it's Q.
QAnon.
Like, I didn't know
Yeah,
if
it's a Q.
Is Centelli a Q?
Yeah, I sort of like didn't even. Yeah, that was a little tidbit in there that was kind of weird.
That always happens to me too. It's like, wait, explain.
Yeah.
What this
Obama
is?
and Susan Rice killed JFK. I don't know. Like half the stuff that they say, I'm just like, seriously.
I'm just like, follow this line of logic, and like I try to do.
There is no logic, so just let it go.
Susan Rice.
Yeah, Susan Rice killed JFK.
Yeah, I know.
All right, but let's keep going.
I mean, Ellie Alexander says he can time travel, so maybe Pete Centelli knows how to do this, or Susan Rice and Barack Obama know how to do it. Anyway,
who knows what they believe? They believe some crazy stuff, 100%. So this is kind of a gauge of how crazy they've gotten. I just kind of brushed by that, thinking, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I know, right?
But yeah, it's really bad shit. You're right. Okay, so. My next clip is somebody that's running for Senate in Delaware, and apparently this individual is, wait for it, a flat earther. And I'm not kidding you. Let's play this clip.
That's why they hide the flat earth. They want you just to think you're a globe floating around in space, nothing special about you. You were an accident. When God intentionally put us here, he intentionally created us, and he loves us, and he made us just like them. So that is what I have to say about that. That is why I lean towards more flat earth than I do round earth. Also, I haven't seen it. I don't trust anything I don't see anymore. If I haven't seen it myself, I don't believe it. It's a lie, because everything that they've told me is a lie.
Note, by the way, in the video clip on the Right Wing Watch, I don't know if you saw her comment underneath.
No.
She actually says globe are seething. It's the R slur with the globe attached to it. And so that was her comment to that, which so she's very committed to it. And like, again, I mean, like I feel like
her name is Lauren, and all I'm going to say is, Lauren, if you want to see it for yourself, let me just encourage you to walk to the edge. Just go to the edge of the flat earth, look down at that edge of the flat earth, shoot a picture, and send it to us. Yeah. We will wait.
Yeah, no. I unfortunately had it because she was in Georgia when I was there covering the Georgia governor race. And she was campaigning for the loon. I'm blanking at her name.
Yeah, which?
She was the one there with Mike Lindell and Stu Peters and kind of and some Proud Boys were there too, of course. So like I've unfortunately been introduced to her a while back, and she was not weirdly talking about anti-globe rhetoric, which is
this is so weird. What do you think? It's just a globe dangling, and I'm like, oh my god! Really the fact that this is the quality of GOP candidate we have right now is fucking scary. I'm sorry.
I always do wonder, like, do they like think it's the turtle? Like the whole, like, somebody shared an image below on the post. Like, do they think it's the flat Earth, and then there's like the turtle that's like underneath it, and things like is that what it is?
It's turtles all the way down. It's turtles all the way down. Oh god! All right, that's a joke for anybody that's in philosophy. Yeah. All right, let me move on to QAnon stuff because we already talked about that. I have two clips I want to play where now we've gotten to the stage of QAnon where Biden isn't real. He's let's just play him.
You can build your life on sand and be woke, it'll fall. You can build your church on woke, it's going to fall. Or you can build it on the rock, which is the kingdom of God, and it'll stand no matter what happens. Wind, floods, rain, egg prices, inflation, a fake administration, 46 that does not exist. Interesting that God said that from the very start, November 4th. This is a fake administration. It doesn't exist. Why would he say that? And then you got a guy, when I look at pictures, I don't know how many guys are trying to be him. Oh, you're a conspiracist. No, I'm a realist. I'm a cartoonist. I can recognize when somebody doesn't look the same. First of all, you got different looking eyes, different looking head, different looking earlobes. Well, Pastor, you're just one of those conspiracies. I don't read conspiracies. I don't even listen to the news. I'm just telling you, when I've seen pictures, I'm like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to pull the wool over our eyes. And I ain't buying it because I ain't deceived. That's just a side note because I had to put a little political commentary in there. Look at Revelation 13, verse 8. Oh, look him up. I even matched his signatures once. Somebody said it to me, I'm like, ain't it the same signature? Boy, some people are mad right now. Don't mess with my Biden. Well, no, B-Y-E-D-O-N-E. Biden. There you go. I'm not playing their game. Thank you.
All right, that's number one. Let's go ahead and play the second one because it's just as loony about the same topic.
Now I'm going to say something and you probably think I'm off the wall, but you know, it's very weird to me. I mean, I was in the medical field before, and to be able to talk at one point like, okay, and then to jumble all these words, and then to see different earlobes and different mouth, and teeth. I don't know. I mean, are we dealing with like clones here? Whatever.
I don't know. You know, I've heard that, and I'm just going to say, if they picked a clone, they picked a really bad clone. Like, I would think you'd want an improvement because it's not hard to improve on what we've got. So I don't personally buy it because if I were going to pick a lookalike, I'd pick someone competent who's capable of carrying on a conversation. But, you know, I don't know.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
All right, so either Biden's a clone or God says 46 that he doesn't exist. So Biden doesn't exist, he's a clone, or there's a bunch of people being Biden at different times. What is going on here?
I do love as somebody who like is able to, one of the best ways that I usually is like going back from 2015 when I kind of started covering this kind of world in general, is that like we can come together over our kind of mutual dislike of whatever the Democratic nominee is, and we're like, no, I started hating Hillary Clinton long before you guys even cared.
Right, they assume
like,
if you hate their right-wing lunatics, yeah,
I actually have real, like I actually have like things. But like
it's
the
true.
Biden thing where it's just like I would have gotten somebody better, and I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense.
No, you know, it's always funny to me when I cover protests and the right wings, like especially during the Trump era, the right wingers be like, fuck Biden, and then the left people would be like, yeah, fuck Biden too.
Yeah.
And they would, all the right wingers be like shocked by this. It's like, no.
You didn't vote for Biden? It's like, well, probably. I mean,
yeah, but they probably did. But the point is like they cast a vote for Biden because they hate Trump more. It's not that they think.
I tried to stop dry heaving when I mailed in that mail-in ballot for it. But yeah, no, this is. I mean, so
but they're so partisan in their beliefs that it's kind of hard for them to understand that maybe there are people in the world that want a better government, period, want more democracy, period, believe that the bot Congress is extracting wealth from the working class. Like there are things that are clearly obvious to, you know, members of the left, right? So it's that have nothing to do with supporting Joe Biden. Joe Biden, as far as they're concerned, is a right-wing politician. Yeah, I feel it.
The sad thing, I mean, the sad thing is that you know what I mean, like these things are so laughable, whether it be the flat Earth or whether it be the whatever, but people are listening to it. It's like,
I assure you, these are real. These are real.
No, but I mean, like their subscription, like no, but they have real followers, and then they have real people who are like nodding their head, going, yeah, laughing. Those people you hear laughing on the second to last clip. You know, just like there's people there. There's people that are loving this, and the people that are not.
These are all individuals that have large enough audiences where it's like, yikes, are you serious?
Yeah. I will say as a agnostic atheist or whatever I am, while saying that you're a person who doesn't read conspiracies while holding a Bible and then directly specifically mentioning Revelations afterwards, which like we can have arguments about you know, the book of Matthew, all the, you know, books and Jesus and whatever, but like then specifically going into like, okay, this is like where the conspiracy theory world originates, is the book of Revelations.
Book of Revelations. Yeah, you're not wrong on that. There's all kinds of things that folks derive from that stuff. Not wrong. All right, let's end the show with my least favorite individual on the planet. He is the founder of the Daily Stormer, our neo-Nazi Andrew Anglin, who has now been getting more attention because Elon Musk reinstated his account on Twitter. He is just pathetic, though. Can I just say this? The guy wonders why he can't get a date. And let me just play a clip for us, the reason why women are like, you're an idiot.
The best example is domestic violence laws, where you can get put in prison, not jail, but prison, for restraining a woman, for locking her in a room when she's going crazy, just locking her in the room. And you go to some other country and tell people, any country really, besides the United Kingdom or probably Australia and maybe some of Western Europe. I don't know, but anywhere else in the whole world, whether it's the Arabs, the blacks, the Latin Americans, the Asians, the Eastern Europeans, anywhere else. And you tell people that it's, that you can go to prison for locking your girlfriend or your wife in like the bathroom when she's going crazy, or her bedroom when she's going crazy. They say, well, what are you supposed to do? like when she starts having a hysterical breakdown, what do you do? Because it's understood that women have these events every once in a while, at least. I mean, when they're younger, it probably happens more than once a year. As they age, I think it probably happens
Everything mellows
less.
out a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but women do have these events where they completely lose control. And, you know, I mean, typically men used to slap them and or restrain them by putting them in some room where they can't get out for a little while and they have to sit there until they relax. It's somehow related to their menstruation cycle, I would assume. It's a hormonal thing that just creates chaos in their emotions. And you see that people respond to these things in a similar way. And in America, you have people, the government putting its iron fist in the gears of normal human behavior in a lot of different places. And I would say that domestic violence is one of the biggest.
Okay, listen, Andrew, you big fucking man baby who has had more events than I could like shake my finger at, more emotionally outbursted episodes than any woman has ever had. Are you kidding me right now? I mean, like I can't even get mad at this stupid because it's that fucking stupid.
Yeah.
It's like,
this
wow.
This is one of those, like, as somebody who has lived with several women, I've never had this problem. Never had the point where it is.
Exactly.
And
This guy can't deal with women. It's just
if
pathetic.
you're having this problem, like, then it speaks more to you. It's a weird metaphor, but it's just the way that people always talk. It's like, well, this TikTok always all these women, in scantily clad teenagers are on my TikTok, and it's like it's just a sex site. I'm like, I don't have that problem.
I do.
Maybe it's the algorithm that's causing this problem because you keep searching for this. But like this
Right,
is
exactly.
this is like this problem. You're causing this problem, likely. Even though I kind of doubt that. I hope for women that might be. Do 10 seconds of research on who this man is would go, no, I'm not going to date a person who says that if I'm going to be hysterical or whatever, I'm going to get locked in the room or slapped, and kind of pining for the days where you used to be able to commit domestic violence against a woman and not get in trouble.
Right. I mean,
which
the
is
guy
barely
just
even now. Like
he hates women because he doesn't understand women, and women won't respond to him. So he's blaming them instead of himself for the reasons why he can't get a reasonable date. Andrew, it's on you. Listen to what you're saying right now. You are someone that has engaged in all kinds of emotional, like the description that you're placing on women describes you perfectly on so many levels.
Yeah.
So, and I doubt, any women like feels the need to like slap you, punch you, kick you in the balls, lock you in a room, because why bother? You're not worth it. But point being, this is a guy that is now reinstated on Twitter and running his mouth off. It's like, okay, here we are.
Yeah. And but I mean, that's the new Twitter. Where you can do that. But if you dare to go against Elon, you're screwed. But I don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, it is. I mean, we laugh about all of these things, but because you have to.
We laugh
cry.
because you have to, not to cry. But there are some real dangers here. I think the real danger in this arena is we've seen it with the other manosphere guy whose name I drawing a blank on for a good reason, who's now in jail. Point being is that if these men influence younger men to buy into their rhetoric, then these younger men end up going down a path where they are also going to struggle to have, healthy relationships with women. And then they end up getting angry and blaming the women when really at root, the problem is the way that you're acting. Nobody owes you anything. Andrew, women don't owe you anything. No woman owes a man anything. And that's what angers you the most. I think a lot of these guys realize that women control sex because we do. We can say no. They want to go back to the days where
men do as well. Men can say no too. It's one of those weird things where it's like it's a two-way road, and it needs to be a two-way road because that's consent, and also.
But they see it as women. Let me clarify that. They see that as women having power because women can say no, right? Yes, so because they can say no, they now control sex. Do you see what I'm saying? That is so. That is to them. This is not a mutual exchange, like it never has been. Yeah. But these are men that are incredibly unhealthy, have unhealthy relationships with how they see women. And then that just sort of, it's like a feedback loop where it creates more misogyny, more anger, more whatever else. And then that just makes women turn away from them even more. I mean, it is a problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem.
It's what's disturbing is that is realistically like how mainstream this thought process is, like how mainstream when we are having this conversation now where we're very worried about young men that like, I think it's like 40% of young men are single or something like that. And there's the studies that come out and there's these like worrying articles that are written in news publications.
But as much of that, is that accurate or is it exaggerated? I mean, just because you're single doesn't mean you don't have healthy viewpoints of relationships.
I mean, but that's obviously, but like this idea that like we never have the opposite conversation about women, like women being single or women like would be it's a pot because of also what it means that if women are historically
I hear you.
Why most women by the age of 30 or something, I'm just throwing out a number, are married or in a long-term relationship has been a financial and been a kind of like a societal pressure reason. Right. And now we're getting rid of that. It means that women are not forced to just
choosing to be. So, interestingly, my family, my dad grew up in Sweden. I have family that live there still. In Sweden, people don't get married. It's more of a secular country. They will cohabitate, have children, the whole 9 yards, and just never get married. It's really common there. And I think eventually that comes to the United States as well, because you're right, that pressure has now been relieved. But I also think there's a reactionary force against that, right? So the traditionalists, right, which are, the Nazis consider themselves traditionalists, there's a pushback from them on that. And it's not just the extreme right, it's, it's also very religious folks there's going to be pushback from. So there's reactionary forces that are coming to play. I think eventually the pendulum lands somewhere in the middle where everybody just accepts people. I hope at least, but
I just don't think that. I mean, like one thing is that, like obviously we're on the right wing roundup now, and like talking about extremism. I don't believe that this, unfortunately, that this rhetoric is that far away from mainstream conversation that a lot of middle America not might have. I mean, obviously it's on the more extreme shock. It's I could definitely see a shock radio person like just kind of like, I miss the days when or women have their hysterics. And when we talk about that, it's standard schlock on a lot of sitcoms that women are having the time of the month and here's a chocolate bar and whatever, and we just have this terrible sexism of it, like as opposed to, because we refuse to ever medically. If men had this problem, there would be 10 different pills. I know it's that's also just as much of a joke. Be like if men had to have abortions, it would be at the 7-Eleven or whatever. Yeah. But it's we joke about it, but it's not wrong. I mean, if there's a problem that men have, it will be solved in 10 seconds.
Right.
And there'll be,
and I can say as a 50-year-old woman, and I still have my period, had it my whole life, I don't get more emotional when I have my period at all. I think that in some instances is a trope as well.
I think that it also it's like if you're living with a man that is treating you like you should be able to be locked in a room and slapped when you get angry at likely his antics. And antics is the wrong word, but
no, you're not
his
wrong.
Terribleness. Yeah. and like going, okay, yeah, no, maybe you might get hysterical. I think I would get hysterical too if my partner.
I would get angry if my partner was Andrew Anglin. Yes, I would get angry.
Yeah,
That's.
no.
But the fact that
like
he can't.
we deal with men. I mean, you look at the videos that we showed earlier from the Nazi protests there, and going, if we just treated them like women, or like the way that America kind of treats women, is like, stop being so hysterical. Like, really get yourself together. Are you on your period? And just talk real, like, and just like, obviously they punch you in the face or something like that. But it's like, but we don't treat it.
But you're not wrong. That's what I'm sort of getting at. These are folks that have behaved in the exact way that they're describing women behaving in on so many levels. I mean, the meltdowns, the absolute meltdowns that you see them engage in, where you're just like, okay, I'm laughing at you. Are you serious right now?
Yeah, no.
And they don't seem to have any self-awareness of it, right? So, but also in that group, you'll see a lot of these neo-Nazis on their Telegram channels basically say it's okay to rape a white woman to further the white race because white women aren't having enough babies with white men, So, but again, none of this is about them stopping for a second and considering what it is about themselves that is turning women off.
Yeah.
They're owed something, which is ridiculous.
This is like the whole trad. Like, there's, if you go on TikTok, you go to different places. Like, there's a trad
wives,
these new trad wives that basically is trying to be pushed. But this is also like a big thing. Why, like, you look at go to different relatively the mega churches and things like that, and that are more centrist right, but this is it's low key, this kind of mentality and conversation where it's just like you have the husband at top,
that's fair,
you have the wife to take care of thing, and it's just like the next step. What's the next step? Is literally just a tiny little step. If you had a wife that was being hysterical, whatever, once a month, whatever, what would that very mainstream, what would the Joel Osteen
say about that?
The world say? How do you deal with it? It's like, well, you pray on her and restrain her and stop her from harming herself or something like that. And it's just like I see your point. What worries me is that I hear this and it's like, that doesn't sound that different from what you'd hear on like a shock jock on mainstream terrestrial radio, or in a lot of the more conservative kind of like world of broadcasting and religious world as well.
That's a fair point you're making. Absolutely a fair point.
And this guy's a Nazi. And it's just like, I don't know, the moment that I have you hear any like belief system that you share with a Nazi, it's like that kind of rule of like, if there's a Nazi flag at a protest and no one deals with it.
And no one deals, you're a Nazi. You're at a Nazi protest. I agree.
Yeah. And so it's just like, well, you share. Yeah.
Absolutely true. Okay, Zach, if people want to follow you on Twitter or keep up with your work, where's the best place to do that?
ZD Roberts is kind of my handle on everything. Okay. I'm on all the different sites, but mainly I'm on Twitter. You can find my work at visu.news. I have a Substack with that same handle, and I work as a producer for Greg Palast. And if you're in the Ithaca area, this next on the 31st and the 1st, we have a screening of Vigilante.
Oh, right on.
In Ithaca on the 1st at 3 p.m.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for joining me this week. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.